Are you ready to fall asleep? With 100 differences between the 1960s and the 2020s America. Let's begin. 1. Morning routines. 1960s. Americans awakened to clanging mechanical alarm clocks, immediately reaching for printed newspapers delivered to doorsteps before dawn. Families gathered around kitchen radios for weather forecasts and news bulletins from trusted anchors. Morning routines followed predictable patterns: showering, dressing in carefully pressed clothing, and departing homes without portable communication devices. Information arrived on predetermined schedules, consumed collectively rather than individually. 2020s. Smartphone alarms gently rouse sleepers with customized sounds, instantly connecting them to overnight global developments through notification screens. Individuals scroll through personalized news feeds, check weather apps, and consume podcasts during bathroom routines. Smart speakers announce calendars while coffee brews automatically. Information flows continuously, customized by algorithms understanding individual preferences. The morning newspaper has become an antiquated concept, replaced by constantly updating digital streams, delivering breaking news instantaneously across multiple platforms and devices simultaneously. 2. Breakfast culture. 1960s. Breakfast represented sacred family time, with mothers preparing eggs, bacon, toast, and fresh squeezed orange juice. Cereal boxes lined pantry shelves, featuring cartoon mascots and simple ingredient lists. Families sat together at kitchen tables, discussing upcoming daily activities. Home-cooked meals cost approximately $2 for 4 people. Nutritional awareness remained limited to basic food groups, with little consideration for organic options, allergens, or specialized dietary requirements. 2020s. Breakfast has transformed into individualized, often mobile affairs. Meal delivery services, protein shakes, and grab-and-go options accommodate hectic schedules. Specialty diets, keto, vegan, gluten-free, paleo dominate conversations. Nutritional labels detail macros, calories, and ingredient sourcing. A comparable family breakfast costs $15 to $20, with organic options doubling prices. Apps track caloric intake while intermittent fasting challenges traditional 3-meal structures. Breakfast has evolved from communal ritual to personalized nutrition optimization. 3. Home entertainment. 1960s. Living rooms centered around single television sets broadcasting 3 to 5 channels. Families gathered for scheduled programming: The Ed Sullivan Show, evening news, primetime sitcoms. Black and white screens, later color, provided shared entertainment experiences. No remote controls meant physically changing channels. Radio provided additional entertainment through serialized dramas and music programs. Entertainment consumption was collective, scheduled, and limited to broadcaster decisions. 2020s. Homes contain multiple screens, televisions, laptops, tablets, smartphones, each streaming personalized content. Services like Netflix, Disney Plus, and YouTube offer millions of options simultaneously. Family members often consume different content in separate rooms. Smart TVs connect to internet services, eliminating broadcast schedules entirely. Binge-watching entire seasons replaces weekly episode anticipation. Entertainment has shifted from shared family experiences to individualized, on-demand consumption patterns, fundamentally altering how households interact during leisure time. 4. Telephone communication. 1960s. Rotary dial telephones, tethered to walls by cords, served as household communication hubs. Party lines meant sharing connections with neighbors, limiting privacy. Long-distance calls cost substantial amounts, reserved for special occasions. Operator assistants connected complex calls. Answering machines didn't exist. Missed calls meant lost opportunities. Telephone etiquette emphasized politeness, brevity, and scheduled conversation times. Phone numbers contained exchange names before digits. 2020s. Smartphones enable instant global communication through voice, video, text, and social media. Video calling via FaceTime, Zoom, or WhatsApp connects people visually worldwide for free. Texting often replaces voice calls entirely. Voicemail is declining as messaging apps dominate. Social etiquette has evolved. Texting, before calling, is expected. Read receipts, create response pressure, and constant connectivity blurs boundaries. Phones have transformed from communication tools into portable computers managing entire lives. 5. Mail and correspondence. 1960s. Handwritten letters maintained relationships across distances. Postage stamps cost 5 cents, delivering correspondence within days. Families awaited mailmen daily, checking for personal letters, bills, and magazines. Writing letters was considered an art form, taught in schools. Holiday cards arrived by hundreds. People saved correspondence in boxes, preserving family histories. Telegrams announced urgent news. Mail represented primary written communication method outside face-to-face conversation. 2020s. Email, texting, and social media messaging have virtually eliminated personal letters. Physical mail contains primarily bills, packages, and advertisements. Communication happens instantaneously across continents. The art of letter writing has largely disappeared from educational curricula. Emojis and GIFs replace carefully crafted sentences. Digital messages are rarely preserved intentionally, creating gaps in family documentation. Speed has replaced thoughtfulness, with expectations for immediate responses, creating communication pressure unknown to previous generations, enjoying leisurely correspondence rhythms. 6. Kitchen appliances. 1960s. Kitchens featured basic electric or gas ranges, standard refrigerators, and simple countertop appliances. Manual can openers, hand mixers, and percolators required physical effort. Avocado green and harvest gold-colored appliances defined kitchen aesthetics. Microwave ovens were rare, expensive novelties. Food processors didn't exist. Chopping happened by hand. Appliances operated independently, without connectivity or programmability, beyond simple timers and temperature dials. 2020s. Smart appliances connect to Wi-Fi, controlled via smartphone apps remotely. Refrigerators feature touchscreens, internal cameras, and inventory management systems. Instant pots, air fryers, and sous vide machines revolutionize cooking methods. Voice assistants control appliances through commands. Energy star ratings emphasize efficiency. Appliances communicate with each other through smart home systems. Technology has transformed kitchens into connected, automated spaces where appliances anticipate needs, suggest recipes, and minimize energy consumption while maximizing convenience. 7. Laundry day. 1960s. Monday traditionally meant laundry day, requiring substantial physical labor. Wringer washers demanded manual feeding of clothes between rollers. Clotheslines outdoor or basement-based dried everything naturally. Ironing consumed hours weekly. Detergents came in simple powder form. Fabric softeners were just emerging. Laundering represented all-day endeavors, requiring presence and attention throughout processes. Washing machines were straightforward mechanical devices with minimal settings. 2020s. High-efficiency washers and dryers complete cycles quickly with minimal supervision. Front-loading machines use less water and energy. Steam cycles, sanitization settings, and smartphone notifications mark technological advancement. Detergent pods provide pre-measured convenience. Environmental concerns drive cold water washing and eco-friendly products. Many apartments include in-unit laundry, previously considered luxury. Technology has transformed laundry from labor-intensive weekly ritual into convenient, efficient task requiring minimal time or physical effort. 8. Home heating and cooling. 1960s. Furnaces provided winter heating. Summer air conditioning remained luxury for wealthy households. Window units cooled single rooms inefficiently. Families opened windows, used fans, and accepted seasonal temperature variations. Fuel oil and natural gas heated homes through radiators or forced air. Thermostats were simple dial mechanisms. Energy costs remained relatively low. Sweaters indoors during winter and minimal cooling expectations during summer defined comfort standards. 2020s. Central heating and cooling systems maintain year-round comfortable temperatures. Smart thermostats learn preferences, adjust automatically, and connect to smartphones for remote control. Zoned systems heat or cool specific areas independently. Energy efficiency ratings guide purchasing decisions. Monthly utility costs for climate control significantly exceed 1960s expenses, even adjusted for inflation. Expectations for consistent indoor temperatures regardless of season represent dramatic lifestyle shifts. Environmental concerns increasingly influence heating and cooling choices. 9. Reading and books. 1960s. Physical books dominated reading culture. Public libraries served as community gathering spaces and primary sources for borrowing literature. Independent bookstores lined main streets. Book clubs met regularly in living rooms. Bestseller lists influenced purchases significantly. Used bookstores offered affordable alternatives. Reading happened exclusively through printed pages. Book ownership filled floor-to-ceiling shelves, displaying intellectual interests and accomplishments visibly. 2020s. E-readers like Kindle allow carrying thousands of books digitally. Audiobooks enable listening during commutes and exercise. Amazon dominates book sales, contributing to independent bookstore decline. Online book clubs connect globally. Self-publishing has democratized authorship. Digital libraries offer instant borrowing without physical visits. However, printed books are experiencing renewed appreciation, with readers valuing tangible experiences. Reading habits have diversified across formats, though screen time increasingly competes with traditional reading for attention and leisure time allocation. 10. Bedtime rituals. 1960s. Evenings concluded with family television viewing, particularly nightly news broadcasts at 10 or 11 o'clock. Children received bedtime stories from physical books. Adults read magazines or novels before sleep. Simple routines: brushing teeth, setting mechanical alarms prepared for rest. Bedrooms remained technology-free zones. Sleep happened naturally without significant cultural conversation about sleep hygiene, optimization, or disorders beyond basic insomnia recognition. 2020s. Bedtime involves complex rituals addressing blue light exposure from devices. Sleep tracking apps monitor rest quality through smartwatches. Weighted blankets, white noise machines, and meditation apps assist relaxation. Experts recommend avoiding screens before sleep, though many ignore this advice. Sleep science has revealed circadian rhythm importance, REM cycles, and sleep debt consequences. Bedtime has transformed from simple routine into optimized process, with technology simultaneously disrupting and attempting to improve rest quality through various interventions and monitoring systems. 11. Automobile ownership. 1960s. American cars featured massive chrome bumpers, tail fins, and powerful V8 engines prioritizing style over efficiency. Muscle cars defined youth culture. Seatbelts were optional. Airbags didn't exist. Gas mileage averaged 10 to 12 miles per gallon. Cars were mechanical systems average owners could repair. Station wagons transported families. Car ownership symbolized freedom and adulthood. Prices ranged from $2,000 to $4,000 for new vehicles. 2020s. Modern vehicles emphasize safety, efficiency, and technology integration. Compact SUVs dominate sales. Advanced driver assistance systems include automatic braking, lane keeping, and adaptive cruise control. Electric vehicles represent growing market segments. Gas mileage exceeds 30 miles per gallon for many models. Computers control engine functions, requiring specialized diagnostic equipment. Average new car prices exceed $45,000. Cars connect to smartphones, featuring touchscreen interfaces. Ownership is declining among younger generations, favoring ride-sharing services over personal vehicle investment. 12. Gas stations. 1960s. Full-service stations employed attendants who pumped gas, checked oil, cleaned windshields, and inspected tire pressure. Stations offered mechanical repairs and employed neighborhood mechanics. Gas prices averaged 30 cents per gallon. Attendants wore uniforms and provided friendly service. Credit cards were rarely accepted. Cash dominated transactions. Green stamps and promotional glasses incentivized loyalty. Stations represented community gathering spaces where locals exchanged news. 2020s. Self-service predominates, with customers pumping gas independently. Prices fluctuate around $3 to $4 per gallon nationally. Convenience stores attached to stations generate primary profits through snacks and beverages rather than fuel sales. Pay-at-pump credit card readers eliminate human interaction. Electric vehicle charging stations represent emerging infrastructure. Mobile apps identify cheapest nearby prices. Gas stations have transformed from full-service community hubs into transactional pit stops, with human interaction becoming optional rather than integral to fueling experiences. 13. Air travel. 1960s. Flying represented glamorous luxury experiences. Passengers dressed formally, men in suits, women in dresses and heels. Airlines served elaborate complimentary meals on china with metal silverware. Smoking sections filled cabins with cigarette haze. Spacious seats provided legroom. Flight attendants, then stewardesses, maintained strict appearance standards. Airport security involved simple metal detectors. Ticket prices remained expensive, limiting flying to special occasions or business travelers. 2020s. Air travel has become commonplace transportation. Passengers wear casual clothing, athletic wear, jeans, even pajamas. Budget airlines offer bare-bones service, charging for checked bags, seat selection, and snacks. Security involves extensive screening, removing shoes, liquids restrictions, body scanners. Seats have shrunk considerably, with economy class offering minimal comfort. Frequent flyer programs reward loyalty. Online booking replaced travel agents. Flying has transformed from special event into routine, sometimes unpleasant necessity, democratized but stripped of earlier glamour and service quality. 14. Highway system, 1960s. The interstate highway system was under active construction following President Eisenhower's 1950s authorization. New highways connected cities, previously requiring slow state road navigation. Rest stops offered basic facilities. Paper maps guided travelers. Getting lost was common. Highway motels sprouted along routes. Road signs provided simple, directional information. Highways represented engineering marvels and symbols of American progress and mobility. 2020s. Interstates span the nation completely, requiring ongoing maintenance rather than new construction. GPS navigation via smartphones has eliminated paper maps and uncertainty. Digital signs display real-time traffic conditions, amber alerts, and variable speed limits. Smart highway technology monitors traffic flow. Rest stops offer Wi-Fi, healthy food options, and electric vehicle charging. Highway systems integrate with traffic apps like Waze and Google Maps. Modern highways emphasize efficiency, safety, and connectivity, transforming from simple pathways into intelligent transportation networks, monitoring and managing traffic digitally. 15. Public transportation, 1960s. Buses and trains served urban centers and commuter routes with basic amenities. Tokens or exact change purchased rides. Schedules existed on printed timetables. Public transit was primary transportation for working-class individuals and those unable to afford cars. Systems operated independently without regional integration. Cleanliness and safety varied significantly. Transit ridership was declining as automobile ownership increased and families moved to suburbs. 2020s. Public transportation features contactless payment via cards or smartphone apps. Real-time tracking shows bus and train locations. Many systems have modernized with updated vehicles, improved accessibility for disabled passengers, and enhanced cleanliness. However, American public transit still lags behind international counterparts. Ride-sharing services like Uber and Lyft have further reduced ridership. Urban areas are attempting to revitalize transit through expanded rail lines and dedicated bus lanes. Environmental concerns are driving renewed public transportation investment. 16. Vacation, travel, 1960s. Family road trips defined summer vacations. Station wagons loaded with luggage headed toward national parks, beaches, or relatives' homes. Motor lodges and independent motels lined highways, offering affordable overnight accommodations. Roadside attractions, dinosaur parks, mystery spots entertained travelers. Families consulted triptychs for routing. Vacations emphasized journey over destination. Postcards mailed from stops documented adventures. Dining meant local restaurants discovered along routes. 2020s. Online booking sites like Expedia and Airbnb have transformed vacation planning. Chain hotels dominate lodging markets. Travelers research destinations thoroughly through reviews and Instagram posts before departing. GPS navigation has eliminated serendipitous discovery. Experience, economy emphasizes activities over sightseeing. Vacation rental homes offer alternatives to hotels. Travelers share experiences constantly via social media. Vacations have shifted from exploratory journeys into carefully curated, pre-researched experiences, with spontaneity largely replaced by optimization and advanced planning through digital resources. 17. Driver's education. 1960s. High schools offered driver's education as standard courses. Students learned in cars with dual controls, practicing in parking lots and quiet streets. Instructors taught basic mechanical knowledge, checking oil, changing tires. Written tests covered simple traffic laws. Road tests assessed basic competency. Obtaining licenses was straightforward, with minimal requirements. 16-year-olds eagerly anticipated licensing, viewing it as essential freedom. 2020s. Driver's education often requires private driving schools charging hundreds of dollars. Graduated licensing systems impose restrictions on young drivers, passenger limits, nighttime curfews. Tests emphasize defensive driving and hazard awareness. Many teenagers delay licensing, less interested in driving than previous generations. Simulators complement actual driving instruction. Parents increasingly teach children rather than relying on school programs. Obtaining licenses involves more complex processes, reflecting emphasis on safety, but also creating barriers, reducing teenage driving rates significantly compared to previous eras. 18. Traffic laws. 1960s. Seatbelt laws didn't exist initially. Belts became mandatory equipment in 1968, but usage wasn't required. Speed limits varied widely by state. DUI enforcement was minimal and inconsistent. Motorcycle helmets weren't legally required in most states. Traffic enforcement relied on officer observation without technological assistance. Penalties were relatively lenient. Car safety wasn't legislative priority. Personal freedom trumped regulatory intervention. 2020s. Comprehensive seatbelt laws mandate usage with significant fines. Child safety seat requirements are strictly enforced. DUI laws impose severe penalties, including license, suspension, and ignition interlock devices. Speed enforcement uses radar, laser, and automated cameras. Distracted driving laws prohibit texting while operating vehicles. Red light cameras automatically ticket violators. Traffic laws emphasize safety over freedom, reflecting dramatically changed cultural priorities. Technology enables extensive surveillance and automated enforcement previously impossible, though privacy concerns have emerged regarding automated traffic monitoring systems. 19. Car repairs. 1960s. Cars were mechanical systems. Average owners understood and repaired. Backyard mechanics replaced parts using basic tools. Service stations employed mechanics who diagnosed problems through experience and observation. Parts were relatively inexpensive and widely available. Shade tree mechanics helped neighbors. Cars lasted approximately 100,000 miles before major problems. Repair manuals provided accessible guidance. Vehicle maintenance represented common male knowledge and weekend activity. 2020s. Modern vehicles require computerized diagnostic equipment to identify problems. Onboard computers control engine functions, requiring specialized training. Average owners cannot perform complex repairs. Dealership service departments charge premium prices. Extended warranties protect against expensive repairs. Vehicles routinely exceed 200,000 miles with proper maintenance. YouTube tutorials provide DIY guidance, but complexity limits amateur repairs. AC-certified technicians replace neighborhood mechanics. Car repair has transformed from accessible skill into specialized profession, with technology creating dependencies on expert services. 20. Commuting. 1960s. Average commutes lasted 15 to 20 minutes, with workers living relatively close to employment. Commuting meant driving or taking public transit. Rush hour existed, but traffic was manageable in most cities. Carpooling was common. Radio provided entertainment during drives. Commuting time represented dead time, neither work nor leisure. Most households had single-wage earners, limiting commuter numbers. Suburban development was accelerating, gradually increasing commute distances. 2020s. Average commutes extend 30 to 45 minutes, with some exceeding 2 hours daily. Traffic congestion is severe in major metropolitan areas. Podcasts, audiobooks, and streaming music entertain commuters. Remote work, accelerated by the 2020 pandemic, has reduced commuting for millions. Flexible schedules allow avoiding peak hours. Ride-sharing, electric scooters, and bikes diversify commuting options. Commuting time is increasingly viewed as productivity opportunity, answering emails, making calls. Two-income households double commuter numbers, significantly increasing traffic compared to earlier eras. At the same time, the workplace was evolving dramatically. 21. Office environment. 1960s. Office landscapes featured orderly rows of individual desks separated by frosted glass partitions or low dividers, creating semi-private workspaces where employees performed focused tasks throughout 8-hour workdays. Manual typewriters clacked constantly, producing correspondence on carbon paper that created multiple copies simultaneously for filing systems. Massive metal filing cabinets lined walls, storing documents in manila folders organized by complex indexing systems that secretaries mastered. Smoking was not only permitted, but ubiquitous ashtrays sat on every desk, and cigarette smoke created perpetual hazes in conference rooms where executives made decisions. Office supplies included correction fluid for typewriter errors, mechanical pencil sharpeners bolted to desks, and rotary telephones connecting workers to outside lines through switchboard operators. Break rooms featured percolating coffee pots and perhaps vending machines, offering simple snacks. Windows often remained sealed, with ventilation systems struggling against tobacco smoke. Executives enjoyed private offices with doors, wooden furniture, and secretary gatekeepers who screened calls and visitors. The office aesthetic emphasized order, hierarchy, and permanence, with employees often occupying the same desk for entire careers. Fluorescent lighting hummed overhead, and the sounds of typing, ringing phones, and conversations created a distinctive office atmosphere that signified productive business activity in the American economy. 2020s. Contemporary offices have embraced open floor plans featuring long tables with minimal partitions, supposedly fostering collaboration, but often creating noise and distraction challenges that require headphones for concentration. Ergonomic chairs, standing desks, and wellness initiatives reflect increased awareness of sedentary work health impacts. Smoking is absolutely prohibited indoors, with designated outdoor areas for the minority who still smoke cigarettes. Computer workstations dominate, with dual monitors, standard and cloud-based systems eliminating most physical filing needs. Modern offices incorporate technology lounges, huddle rooms with video conferencing equipment, and phone booths for private conversations in otherwise open environments. Break rooms have evolved into sophisticated spaces featuring espresso machines, kombucha on tap, fresh fruit, and sometimes full cafeterias serving subsidized meals. Natural lighting, plants, and biophilic design elements attempt to improve employee well-being and productivity. Many companies have adopted activity-based working, where employees don't have assigned desks, but rather choose workspaces based on daily tasks, quiet zones for focused work, collaborative areas for teamwork, or casual seating for informal discussions. Remote work options, dramatically accelerated by the COVID-19 pandemic, have reduced office populations, with hybrid models becoming standard where employees split time between home and office. Hot desking and hoteling systems manage reduced office footprints. The contemporary office emphasizes flexibility, collaboration, and employee experience rather than the rigid hierarchies and permanence that characterized earlier eras, reflecting fundamental shifts in work culture and expectations. 22. Dress codes. 1960s. Workplace dress codes maintained strict formality, reflecting post-war business culture that valued conformity and professional appearance as indicators of competence and respectability. Men wore dark suits, navy, grey, or black with white dress shirts, conservative ties, polished leather shoes, and often hats removed upon entering buildings. Facial hair was discouraged or prohibited in most professional settings. The clean-shaven look dominated. Women faced even more restrictive expectations, wearing dresses or skirts that fell below the knee, paired with blouses, hosiery, and closed-toe heels. Pants remained largely unacceptable for professional women until later in the decade, and even then faced resistance in conservative industries. Jewelry was minimal and conservative, makeup was expected but understated, and hairstyles conformed to conventional standards. Colors tended toward muted, professional tones. The concept of dressing for success meant adopting uniform appearances that signaled membership in the professional class. Casual Fridays didn't exist. Formality remained constant throughout the work week. Seasonal variations were minimal. Men might wear lighter-colored suits in summer, but casualness never crept into professional environments. These dress codes reinforced workplace hierarchies and gender expectations, with appearance serving as visible marker of professional seriousness. Deviation from dress norms could seriously impact career advancement, as conformity in dress signaled broader conformity to corporate culture and values deemed essential for business success. 2020s. Modern workplace dress codes have relaxed dramatically, varying significantly by industry, company culture, and work location, reflecting broader cultural shifts toward individuality and comfort over conformity. Tech companies pioneered casual workplace attire, jeans, sneakers, hoodies, that has spread to many other sectors, though finance, law, and consulting often maintain more traditional expectations. Business casual has become standard in many offices, meaning slacks or khakis with collared shirts for men, and wider options for women including pants, skirts, dresses, and diverse footwear. The concept of Casual Friday, emerging in the 1990s, now seems quaint as many workplaces embrace casual dress throughout the week. Remote work has further transformed dress norms, with workers dressing comfortably at home, sometimes humorously wearing professional tops for video calls while wearing athletic pants or pajamas below camera view. Video meeting culture has introduced Zoom shirts, presentable upper garments, paired with comfortable lower body clothing. Many companies have abandoned formal dress code policies entirely, instead offering vague guidance about dressing appropriately and trusting employee judgment. Gender-specific dress codes have faced legal challenges and cultural resistance, with companies increasingly adopting gender-neutral policies. Visible tattoos, non-natural hair colors, and diverse personal style expressions are widely accepted in many workplaces, particularly among younger companies and creative industries. However, significant variation persists. Attorneys still wear suits to court, while startup employees might wear shorts and sandals. The evolution reflects changing attitudes about professionalism, with competence increasingly measured by output rather than appearance, though appearance bias undoubtedly persists. 23. Career paths. 1960s. Career trajectories typically followed linear, predictable paths within single organizations where employees spent entire working lives, from entry-level positions through retirement at age 65, with gold watch ceremonies and pension benefits. Company loyalty was mutual. Workers committed to employers, and employers reciprocated with job security, steady advancement, and retirement benefits. Young men, careers were predominantly male, joined companies after high school or college, and methodically climbed organizational ladders through clearly defined hierarchies. Promotions arrived predictably, based on seniority and competent performance, rather than exceptional achievement or lateral moves between companies. The concept of paying your dues meant accepting years in lower positions before advancement opportunities emerged. Career changes were rare and often viewed suspiciously, with frequent job changes suggesting instability or poor performance rather than ambition or growth. Retirement planning centered on company pensions, defined benefit plans, guaranteeing specific monthly payments for life based on salary and years of service. Social Security supplemented pensions, together providing financial security in retirement. Career counseling was minimal. People often followed parents into similar industries or pursued obvious paths based on educational credentials. Geographic mobility was limited, with families remaining in hometowns or regional areas throughout careers. The psychological contract between employers and employees emphasized security and loyalty over flexibility and growth, creating stable but sometimes stagnant career experiences. 2020s. Contemporary career paths are characterized by frequent job changes, with workers averaging 12 to 15 different jobs throughout working lives, often across multiple industries and career fields. The concept of company loyalty has largely evaporated on both sides. Employers view workers as flexible resources adjusted to business needs, while employees view jobs as temporary positions serving personal development and compensation goals. Job hopping every 2 to 4 years has become normalized and often necessary for salary growth and advancement, as external hires frequently receive better compensation than internal promotions. Career trajectories are non-linear, with lateral moves, industry changes, and even complete career pivots common and accepted. The gig economy and freelancing have created alternative career models where workers maintain multiple income streams rather than single employer relationships. Retirement expectations have shifted dramatically. Defined benefit pensions have largely disappeared, replaced by defined contribution plans like 401(k)s that shift investment risk to employees. Many workers expect to work beyond 65, either by necessity due to inadequate savings, or by choice, pursuing encore careers or phased retirement. The concept of retirement itself is evolving, with some workers never fully retiring but continuing part-time work indefinitely. Career planning emphasizes continuous learning, skill development, and personal branding through platforms like LinkedIn. Remote work has eliminated geographic constraints, allowing workers to change employers without relocating. This flexibility brings opportunities but also anxiety, as workers bear more responsibility for career navigation without the security their grandparents enjoyed. 24. Women in workforce. 1960s. Women's workforce participation was significantly limited by legal restrictions, social expectations, and systematic discrimination that confined most women to narrow occupational categories regardless of education or capability. Approximately 38% of women worked outside homes, concentrated in pink-collar positions: secretaries, teachers, nurses, telephone operators, and retail clerks. Professional opportunities were severely restricted. Women were openly excluded from many occupations and faced explicit discrimination in hiring, with help-wanted advertisements literally segregated by gender. Marriage and pregnancy typically ended careers, with many employers maintaining policies requiring women to resign upon marrying or becoming pregnant. Banks required male co-signers for women to obtain credit cards or loans, limiting financial independence. The Equal Pay Act of 1963 addressed wage discrimination, but enforcement was minimal and loopholes plentiful. Women earned approximately 60 cents for every dollar men earned. Sexual harassment was pervasive but unnamed and unaddressed. The term wouldn't enter common usage for another decade. Maternity leave was virtually non-existent. Women simply left employment upon pregnancy, with no guarantee of return. Educational limitations constrained opportunities, with colleges maintaining quotas, limiting female enrollment, and steering women toward traditionally feminine fields. Management positions were almost exclusively male, and the concept of the glass ceiling hadn't yet been articulated, though the reality certainly existed. 2020s. Women now constitute approximately 50% of the workforce, with legal protections against discrimination and expanded opportunities across nearly all occupational categories and industries. The gender pay gap has narrowed to approximately 82 cents per dollar for comparable work, though significant disparities remain, particularly for women of color. Women have made substantial inroads into formerly male-dominated fields, including medicine, law, business, and STEM professions, though they remain underrepresented in many technical fields and leadership positions. The glass ceiling persists, with women holding approximately 30% of senior management positions and less than 10% of Fortune 500 CEO positions. Pregnancy discrimination is illegal under federal law, and maternity leave protections exist through the Family and Medical Leave Act, though the United States remains the only developed nation without mandatory paid maternity leave. Many companies now offer parental leave for both mothers and fathers, recognizing childcare as shared responsibility. Sexual harassment is legally actionable, though the Me Too movement revealed its continued prevalence. Women have greater educational attainment than men, earning more bachelor's and graduate degrees, yet this hasn't translated to proportional leadership representation or wage parity. Remote work options have helped some women balance career and family responsibilities, though they also risk creating flexibility stigma. Despite enormous progress, women still face discrimination, harassment, work-life balance challenges, and advancement barriers that demonstrate the ongoing need for continued cultural and policy changes to achieve true workplace equity. 25. Communication at work. 1960s. Workplace communication flowed through formal, hierarchical channels, with clear protocols governing who could communicate with whom and through what methods. Typed memos on company letterhead conveyed information down organizational chains of command, with secretaries typing, copying, and distributing documents to appropriate recipients. Carbon paper created duplicate copies, and pneumatic tube systems in large buildings physically transported documents between floors and departments. Meetings occurred face-to-face in conference rooms, scheduled well in advance, with formal agendas and minutes recorded by designated note-takers. Executives dictated correspondence to secretaries, who transcribed shorthand notes into typed letters for signature. Telephone communication required operator assistance for external calls, with switchboard operators connecting callers and taking messages when recipients weren't available. Inter-office communication happened through in-person conversations, physical document delivery, or telephone extensions. Written communication was formal, carefully composed and edited before distribution, since errors required retyping entire documents. Response times were measured in days or weeks. Sending a memo and receiving a response could take considerable time as documents physically moved through organizational hierarchies. The pace of business communication was deliberate, allowing for thoughtful consideration but also creating delays in decision-making and problem-solving. Urgency was communicated through telegrams or personal visits, but true immediacy rarely existed in business communication. This slower pace arguably allowed for more thoughtful communication and clearer boundaries between work and personal time. 2020s. Digital communication has fundamentally transformed workplace interaction, speed, informality, and accessibility, collapsing hierarchies while creating new challenges around information overload and constant connectivity. Email dominates professional communication, with workers receiving dozens or hundreds of messages daily, creating pressure for rapid responses and contributing to productivity challenges. Instant messaging platforms like Slack, Microsoft Teams, and Discord enable real-time conversations that blur lines between formal and informal communication. Video conferencing through Zoom, Google Meet, and similar platforms allows global meetings without travel, normalized by pandemic-era remote work requirements. Communication is immediate, and constant colleagues expect responses within hours or even minutes, and work communication extends into evenings and weekends via smartphones. Hierarchical communication barriers have softened, with junior employees able to message executives directly in ways previously unthinkable. Emojis, GIFs, and casual language have entered professional communication, transforming workplace tone and culture. Document collaboration happens in real time through Google Docs and similar platforms, with multiple people simultaneously editing and commenting. Cloud-based systems allow accessing documents from anywhere, eliminating physical document constraints. However, this constant connectivity creates stress, with workers struggling to disconnect from work communication and employers sometimes expecting availability outside traditional work hours. The volume and speed of digital communication has created information overload challenges, with important messages lost in floods of less critical updates. While technology has enabled efficiency and flexibility, it's also blurred work-life boundaries in ways that previous generations never experienced. 26. Work hours. 1960s. The standard work schedule followed rigid 9-to-5 structures, Monday through Friday, with workers physically present at offices, factories, or job sites during designated hours, regardless of workload fluctuations or personal preferences. This schedule emerged from industrial manufacturing needs for coordinated shifts and became standardized across white-collar professions as well. Employees punched time clocks or signed attendance sheets, with tardiness resulting in discipline or wage deductions. Lunch breaks occurred at prescribed times, typically 1 hour, often spent in company cafeterias or nearby restaurants. Coffee breaks morning and afternoon provided brief respites. Work ended definitively at 5 o'clock. Workers left offices, went home, and genuinely disconnected from job responsibilities until the next morning. No smartphones or computers allowed work to follow people home. Overtime existed primarily in manufacturing, compensated at time-and-a-half wages, as required by the Fair Labor Standards Act. Salaried professionals rarely worked excessive hours. Completing work within standard schedules was expected and achieved. The separation between work time and personal time was clear and respected, with evenings and weekends reserved for family, leisure, and community activities. Employers rarely contacted workers at home except for genuine emergencies. Vacations were sacrosanct, with workers genuinely disconnecting without checking in. This structure created predictability, allowing families to plan around consistent schedules, though it offered little flexibility for personal needs or preferences. 2020s. Contemporary work hours have fragmented into diverse arrangements, reflecting technology capabilities, knowledge economy demands, and evolving attitudes toward work-life integration, though with significant variations by industry, role, and company culture. While traditional 9-to-5 schedules persist in many sectors, flexible arrangements have proliferated. Compressed work weeks, 4 10-hour days, flex time, allowing employees to choose start and end times, and remote work enabling location-independent schedules. Many knowledge workers experience always-on cultures where smartphones and laptops allow constant connectivity, blurring boundaries between work and personal time. Salaried professionals frequently work well beyond 40 hours weekly, with unpaid overtime normalized in many industries. The concept of work-life balance has evolved into work-life integration, acknowledging that strict separation is increasingly impossible. Some workers appreciate flexibility to handle personal matters during traditional work hours, balanced by working evenings or weekends. However, this flexibility can become exploitation, with employers expecting availability during unreasonable hours. The pandemic accelerated remote work adoption, with many companies maintaining permanent hybrid or fully remote options that eliminate commutes, but can extend work hours as home and office spaces merge. Asynchronous work across time zones means global teams operate around the clock. Some progressive companies are experimenting with 4-day work weeks or unlimited vacation policies, though implementation varies. Hourly workers often face opposite challenges: unpredictable scheduling, inadequate hours, or mandatory overtime with minimal notice. The evolution of work hours represents both liberation from rigid structures and new challenges around overwork and boundary setting. 27. Job hunting. 1960s. Job searches followed straightforward but time-intensive processes centered on newspaper classified advertisements, physical applications, and in-person networking within local geographic areas and limited professional networks. Job seekers scanned help-wanted sections of daily newspapers, where positions were listed alphabetically by category and often segregated by gender, with help-wanted male and help-wanted female sections. Interested applicants called telephone numbers, mailed typed resumes with cover letters, or visited companies directly to complete paper applications. Resumes were simple documents listing education, work history, and references, typically one page and formatted conservatively. No internet meant researching potential employers required library visits to consult business directories or relying on word-of-mouth information. Networking happened through personal relationships, community organizations, and college alumni associations. Employment agencies charged fees for placement services. Job interviews occurred entirely in person, often requiring multiple visits to companies. The entire process moved slowly. Weeks or months could pass between application and hiring decision. Geographic limitations meant most job searches occurred within commuting distance of current residences, as relocating required significant commitment and expense. Company loyalty meant many workers never actively job searched, instead remaining with single employers for careers or leaving only when circumstances forced changes. Discrimination was common and often legal, with employers explicitly seeking candidates of specific ages, races, genders, or marital statuses without legal consequences. 2020s. Modern job hunting leverages digital platforms, professional networking sites, and sophisticated matching algorithms that connect candidates with opportunities globally, while introducing new complexities and expectations around personal branding and online presence. LinkedIn has become essential for professional networking and job searching, with recruiters actively sourcing candidates rather than waiting for applications. Indeed, Glassdoor and industry-specific job boards aggregate openings, allowing keyword searches and automated alerts for relevant positions. Company websites feature career pages, where applicants submit applications directly through applicant tracking systems that scan resumes for keywords before human review. Video interviews screen candidates remotely before in-person meetings, and some companies conduct entire hiring processes virtually. Resumes have evolved into detailed documents requiring keyword optimization for ATS systems, often accompanied by cover letters, portfolios, and online personal brands. Social media presence matters. Employers research candidates online, making digital footprints professional considerations. Networking has expanded through online professional communities, industry conferences, and social media connections with strangers sharing professional interests. Job hunting can be full-time work itself, with elaborate application processes including assessments, projects, and multiple interview rounds. Transparency has improved through sites like Glassdoor, where employees review employers and sometimes share salary information, empowering candidates with information previously unavailable. However, applicant volume has exploded, making individual applications less effective and often requiring creative approaches to stand out. Remote work has eliminated geographic constraints, allowing searches nationwide or globally. The process is faster in some ways, but often more complex and competitive. 28. Office technology. 1960s. Office technology centered on mechanical devices and paper-based systems that required physical manipulation, manual record-keeping, and human memory for organizational knowledge and processes. Manual typewriters were primary text creation tools, requiring secretaries to retype entire documents to correct errors before correction tape simplified minor fixes. Carbon paper allowed creating multiple copies simultaneously by sandwiching carbon sheets between paper, though copies were progressively fainter. Adding machines and mechanical calculators performed mathematical calculations through complex gear systems, with operators pulling levers or cranking handles for computations. Mimeograph and ditto machines reproduced documents in small quantities, producing purple-inked copies with distinctive chemical smells. Photocopiers emerged late in the decade, revolutionizing document reproduction. Filing cabinets stored physical documents in elaborate organizational systems, with lost files potentially remaining lost permanently. Slide rules enabled engineering calculations. Dictaphones recorded executive dictation onto magnetic belts or cylinders for secretarial transcription. Telephone systems required switchboard operators to manually connect calls. Information retrieval depended on personal knowledge, physical files, and institutional memory. Losing experienced employees meant losing organizational knowledge. Microfiche systems stored archived documents on film, requiring special readers. The pace of work matched technology limitations, with document creation and revision being time-intensive processes that couldn't be rushed beyond human typing speeds and physical document handling. 2020s. Contemporary office technology leverages cloud computing, artificial intelligence, and interconnected digital systems that automate routine tasks, enable real-time collaboration, and generate unprecedented data about work processes and productivity. Computers are ubiquitous, with powerful desktop machines or laptops providing processing capabilities unimaginable to earlier generations. Cloud platforms like Google Workspace, Microsoft 365, and Dropbox allow accessing documents from any device anywhere, with real-time collaboration enabling multiple users to simultaneously edit documents. Email handles most written communication, while project management tools like Asana, Trello, and Monday.com track workflows visually. Customer relationship management systems, enterprise resource planning software, and specialized industry applications integrate business processes digitally. Video conferencing technology enables global meetings without travel. Artificial intelligence and machine learning increasingly automate tasks, scheduling meetings, transcribing conversations, analyzing data, even drafting initial document versions. Smartphones function as portable offices, allowing work from anywhere. Automation has eliminated many routine tasks, theoretically increasing productivity, though often simply changing work nature rather than reducing hours. Digital signatures replace physical signatures for most purposes. Passwords and authentication systems secure digital information, replacing physical locks on filing cabinets. However, technology dependence creates vulnerabilities. System failures, cyber attacks, or internet outages can halt operations completely. The learning curve for new technologies is constant, requiring continuous adaptation. Technology has fundamentally transformed not just how work is done, but what work consists of, shifting emphasis from physical manipulation to information management and digital interaction. 29. Business travel. 1960s. Business travel represented significant undertakings requiring extensive advance planning, support from secretaries and travel agents, and substantial time away from home offices, with travel primarily justified for essential client meetings, conferences, or site visits that couldn't be conducted remotely because remote communication options were limited. Travel agents arranged flights, hotels, and rental cars through telephone calls and physical ticketing, with travelers receiving paper ticket books and vouchers. Companies maintained relationships with preferred hotel chains and airlines, with corporate rates negotiated annually. Expense reports were entirely paper-based, with travelers collecting receipts, taping them to forms, and submitting for manual review and reimbursement weeks later. Business travelers were predominantly male, with road warriors spending extensive time away from families. Air travel required arriving early but involved less security screening, allowing smoother though less safe experiences. Hotels catered to business travelers with basic amenities, telephones, room service, perhaps meeting rooms. Communication during travel required finding payphones or using hotel room phones, with long-distance charges expensive. Travelers were essentially disconnected from offices while traveling, unable to check emails or messages until returning. Per diem allowances covered meals and incidentals. Travel was often seen as glamorous and exciting, representing privilege and status within organizations, though the reality involved significant time in airports, planes, and hotels away from families. 2020s. Modern business travel has transformed through digital booking tools, mobile technology, enabling constant connectivity, and cultural shifts, questioning travel necessity, given video conferencing capabilities and environmental concerns. Travelers book flights, hotels, and rental cars through online platforms like Concur or directly through provider apps, comparing prices and options instantly. Mobile boarding passes and digital hotel room keys eliminate paper. Loyalty programs track automatically through apps, with travelers accumulating points for personal use. Expense management applications like Expensify photograph receipts and generate reports automatically, streamlining reimbursement processes. Business travelers remain connected throughout trips via smartphones and laptops, checking emails, attending video meetings, and accessing cloud-based documents as if in offices. Wi-Fi availability is expected in airports, planes, and hotels. Ride-sharing apps like Uber and Lyft have largely replaced rental cars for urban travel. Business travel has become more egalitarian, with women representing significant proportions of business travelers. However, the pandemic dramatically reduced business travel, as companies discovered video conferencing could replace many trips, raising questions about travel necessity and companies' environmental commitments. When travel occurs, it's often compressed, flying in and out, same day for meetings when possible. The glamour has largely disappeared, replaced by efficiency, focus, and recognition of travel's physical and family toll. Some companies are reducing travel to cut costs and carbon footprints, while others view in-person interaction as irreplaceable for relationship building and complex negotiations. 30. Workplace benefits. 1960s. Employee benefits packages focused primarily on basic health insurance and retirement pensions, with relatively modest expectations around employer-provided perks beyond compensation and essential protections, reflecting different cultural attitudes about employer responsibilities and work-life separation. Health insurance coverage was common for full-time employees at medium and large companies, though benefits were less comprehensive than contemporary standards, with higher out-of-pocket costs and less coverage for dependents. Dental and vision insurance were rare or non-existent. Defined benefit pension plans represented standard retirement benefits, with companies guaranteeing specific monthly payments for life, based on salary and years of service, a commitment that has largely disappeared. Vacation time was limited, typically 1 to 2 weeks annually, increasing with seniority over many years. Sick leave existed but was limited and sometimes unpaid. There was no concept of parental leave beyond women leaving employment upon pregnancy. Life insurance policies provided modest death benefits. Some companies offered profit sharing or annual bonuses tied to company performance. The cafeteria benefits approach, allowing employees to choose among benefit options, didn't exist. Companies provided standard packages to all employees. Wellness programs were non-existent, and employer involvement in employee health beyond providing insurance was minimal. Benefits administration was paper-based and labor-intensive. The psychological contract emphasized fair wages and basic security, rather than extensive perks or work-life balance support. This reflected both limited resources and different cultural expectations about employer-employee relationships and responsibilities. 2020s. Contemporary workplace benefits have expanded dramatically in scope and creativity, particularly at competitive companies trying to attract talent in tight labor markets, though with significant variation between industries and creating notable inequities between companies, offering generous packages and those providing minimal legally required benefits. Health insurance remains central but has become more comprehensive, expensive, and complex, covering mental health, prescription drugs, and preventive care, though employee premium contributions and deductibles have increased substantially. Dental and vision insurance are standard. Retirement benefits have shifted to defined contribution plans like 401, where employers match employee contributions to varying degrees but no longer guarantee specific retirement income. Paid time off has expanded at many companies, 3 to 4 weeks vacation plus sick leave and personal days. Parental leave policies vary dramatically, with progressive companies offering months of paid leave for both parents, while others provide nothing beyond legally mandated unpaid leave. Remote work flexibility has become expected benefit. Many companies offer wellness programs including gym memberships, mental health resources, meditation apps, and health coaching. Student loan repayment assistance has emerged as a recruiting tool. Some tech companies offer elaborate perks, free meals, on-site services, haircuts, dry cleaning, commuter benefits, sabbaticals, and generous stock options. Professional development funding supports continuing education. The gig economy has created a two-tier system where contract workers receive minimal benefits, while full-time employees enjoy comprehensive packages, raising equity questions. Benefits administration occurs through digital platforms, allowing employees to customize selections during annual enrollment periods. However, these expanded benefits don't apply universally. Many hourly and service workers receive minimal benefits beyond legally required, creating significant disparities. 31. Classroom setup. 1960s. Classroom environments maintained rigid, traditional configurations designed to emphasize teacher authority, maintain discipline, and facilitate lecture-based instruction that positioned students as passive recipients of knowledge rather than active participants in learning processes. Student desks were arranged in straight rows facing forward toward teacher's desk and chalkboard, with each student occupying individual desk-chair combinations, often with attached storage compartments for books and supplies. These fixed arrangements left little room for collaboration or flexible grouping, as movement and conversation were generally discouraged except during designated times. Chalkboards dominated front walls, with teachers writing lessons, vocabulary, and assignments in careful cursive that students copied into notebooks. Maps, particularly of the United States and world, hung alongside alphabet strips above boards. Clocks prominently displayed ensured awareness of class periods and school schedules. Bulletin boards featured seasonal decorations, student work displays, and educational posters. Teachers maintained desks at front, creating physical and symbolic separation from students. Elementary classrooms might include reading corners, but overall, rooms served singular instructional purposes with minimal differentiation for various learning activities. Textbooks were standard issue, shared across years with students' names listed inside covers. Supply storage occurred in coat closets or shelving along walls. Windows provided natural light but were often positioned high, minimizing distractions from outside. Classroom size varied but typically accommodated 25 to 35 students. Temperature control was minimal. Rooms were hot in spring and fall, cold in winter. 2020s. Modern classroom designs embrace flexible, collaborative learning environments, incorporating technology integration and recognition of diverse learning styles, though implementation varies significantly based on school funding, educational philosophy, and physical building constraints. Many contemporary classrooms abandon traditional rows for clustered desk arrangements, facilitating group work and peer learning, with furniture often mobile, allowing quick reconfigurations for different activities. Elementary classrooms particularly emphasize learning zones, reading nooks with comfortable seating, STEM areas with building materials, technology stations with computers or tablets, and creative spaces for art projects. Interactive smartboards have largely replaced chalkboards, displaying digital content, educational videos, and enabling interactive lessons where students manipulate on-screen elements. Projection systems and document cameras share student work and demonstrate concepts visually. Many classrooms incorporate student devices, Chromebooks, tablets, or laptops for digital learning, with charging stations and Wi-Fi infrastructure supporting technology use. Classroom libraries offer diverse reading materials at various levels. Flexible seating options including standing desks, yoga balls, wobble stools, and floor cushions recognize that movement aids learning for many students. Classroom decoration includes student work, inspiring quotes, academic vocabulary, and culturally diverse representations. Natural lighting receives more emphasis, with research demonstrating its importance for learning and well-being. Some schools have created maker spaces, outdoor classrooms, and specialized learning environments. However, many schools, particularly in underfunded districts, still operate with traditional setups due to resource limitations, creating educational equity issues, where physical environment quality varies dramatically based on community wealth. 32. School day structure, 1960s. School schedules followed standardized, predictable structures with minimal variation across districts, built around traditional agricultural calendars, despite most students no longer living on farms, reflecting broader cultural assumptions about childhood, learning, and institutional organization that emphasized uniformity over individualization. The school year ran approximately 180 days from September through June, with summer vacation lasting nearly 3 months, originally allowing children to help with farm labor, but persisting long after its agricultural rationale disappeared. School days typically began between 8 and 8:30 a.m. and ended between 2:30 and 3 p.m., with elementary students attending shorter days than secondary students. The day divided into fixed periods, typically 6 to 8 periods in secondary schools, lasting 40 to 50 minutes each, with brief passing times between classes. Elementary schools maintained more flexible scheduling, with individual teachers controlling daily rhythms, though reading, arithmetic, and other subjects occurred at generally consistent times. Lunch periods lasted 30 to 45 minutes, occurring midday, with most students eating cafeteria meals or packed lunches brought from home. Recess provided elementary students with outdoor play breaks, while secondary students had no comparable unstructured time. Bells regulated transitions between periods, conditioning students to external temporal control. Extracurricular activities occurred after school, requiring students to remain longer or return for evening events. Special classes like physical education, art, and music occurred once or twice weekly. Schedules remained consistent throughout the year, with minimal variation. 2020s. Contemporary school scheduling has diversified significantly, with various models attempting to address criticism of traditional structures, though implementation remains uneven and often controversial among educators, parents, and students with competing priorities around learning effectiveness, convenience, and preparation for future demands. Traditional schedules persist in many districts, but alternatives have gained traction. Block scheduling, where students attend fewer but longer classes daily, typically 90 minutes, allows deeper exploration of subjects and reduces daily transitions, though concerns exist about attention spans during extended periods. Some schools alternate between A and B days, with different classes meeting on different days. Year-round schooling, with shorter breaks distributed throughout the year rather than long summer vacations, operates in some districts, claiming to reduce summer learning loss, though research shows mixed results and implementation faces resistance from families valuing traditional summer breaks for camps, travel, and seasonal employment. Later start times, particularly for adolescents, reflect research on teenage circadian rhythms, showing biological predispositions toward later sleep and wake times, with some high schools beginning at 9 a.m. or later to improve student health and academic performance. Lunch periods have shortened in many schools to 25 or 30 minutes due to scheduling pressures, raising concerns about adequate time for eating and socializing. Cafeteria programs have evolved, with free and reduced-price meal eligibility expanded, and some districts offering free meals to all students regardless of income. Before and after-school programs accommodate working parents. Virtual learning options, accelerated by pandemic necessity, have introduced hybrid and fully online models. However, scheduling remains contentious, balancing educational research, family needs, budget constraints, and community traditions. 33. Homework. 1960s. Homework assignments followed straightforward, paper-based formats, emphasizing skill practice, memorization, and independent work completion. With relatively minimal parental involvement expected and understood, boundaries between school, work, and home life that have since eroded significantly in many communities. Students received assignments verbally in class or written on chalkboards, transcribing them into assignment notebooks to remember evening work requirements. Typical homework included math problem sets, reading chapters from textbooks, writing essays or book reports on lined paper, practicing spelling words, and memorizing facts for upcoming tests. Students completed work independently at home using textbooks, encyclopedias if available, and their own knowledge research required physical library visits to consult reference materials. Assignments were handwritten on notebook paper or completed in workbooks. Teachers collected homework by having students pass papers forward in class the following day. Grading happened manually, with teachers writing feedback and scores in red ink before returning assignments. Homework quantity varied by grade and teacher, but was generally moderate, perhaps 30 minutes for elementary students, 1 to 2 hours for high school students. Parents might check that homework was completed and help with particularly challenging problems, but primary responsibility rested with students. No email or online portals connected parents to daily homework assignments, creating separation between school and home unless problems arose. This independent approach built personal responsibility but potentially disadvantaged students lacking home support or resources. 2020s. Modern homework practices have become significantly more complex, technology-dependent and controversial, with dramatically increased parental involvement, digital submission requirements, and ongoing debates about homework's educational value, appropriate quantity, and impacts on student well-being and family time. Many schools utilize learning management systems like Google Classroom, Canvas, or Schoology, where teachers post assignments digitally, students submit work electronically, and parents can monitor progress in real time through parent portals, showing missing assignments, grades, and teacher feedback. This transparency has increased parental involvement and awareness, but also enabled helicopter parenting and grade obsession. Homework itself increasingly requires technology, researching online, creating digital presentations, completing adaptive learning programs that adjust difficulty based on performance, and watching instructional videos. Students often complete math homework through online platforms, providing immediate feedback. The digital divide creates equity issues, with students lacking home internet access or devices disadvantaged, though many schools now loan devices and some districts provide hotspots. Homework quantity has become controversial, with some educators eliminating homework entirely, citing research questioning its effectiveness, particularly for younger students, while others maintain traditional amounts. Debates rage about homework's role in reinforcing inequality, as affluent families provide more support, resources, and enriching alternatives than struggling families. Project-based assignments increasingly emphasize creativity and application over rote practice. Teachers face pressure from parents unhappy about homework quantity or difficulty, with some parents completing assignments for children to ensure good grades. The flipped classroom model has some students watching lecture videos for homework and using class time for application and practice. Concerns about student stress and sleep deprivation have prompted some schools and districts to establish homework limits or ban weekend assignments. Summer homework, once rare, has proliferated in some communities, particularly advanced placement courses requiring extensive reading before school begins. Online homework allows for innovative assignments, but also enables cheating through essay mills and homework help sites. The homework landscape reflects broader tensions between academic rigor and childhood well-being, equity concerns, and disagreements about education's purpose. 34. Research methods. 1960s. Student research required physical visits to libraries where card catalogues, reference books, and librarian assistants provided access to information in processes that built research skills, patience, and appreciation for knowledge acquisition. Though with significant limitations around information, accessibility, currency, and geographic availability, that privileged students attending well-funded schools with extensive library collections. The card catalogue wooden drawers filled with typed or handwritten cards organized alphabetically by author, title, and subject served as gateway to library collections, with students learning Dewey Decimal or Library of Congress classification systems to locate books on shelves. Encyclopedia Britannica, World Book Encyclopedia, and similar reference sets provided starting points for research topics, offering authoritative overviews written by experts and updated annually through new editions or yearbook supplements. Students copied information longhand onto note cards, recording sources for bibliography construction, a laborious process that encouraged careful selection of relevant information rather than indiscriminate copying. Periodical indexes like Reader's Guide to Periodic Literature helped locate magazine articles, with students requesting archived issues from librarians who retrieved physical copies from storage. Research papers required multiple library visits, as students couldn't check out reference materials, necessitating on-site reading and note-taking. Interlibrary loan systems allowed requesting books from other libraries, but delivery took weeks. Research limitations meant students relied heavily on available materials, sometimes unable to find adequate sources on topics. Currency of information was problematic. Encyclopedias might be years outdated, and finding recent information required current periodicals. Librarians served as essential guides, helping students navigate systems and locate materials. This research process was time-intensive, but built valuable skills around information, evaluation, synthesis, and citation. 2020s. Contemporary research has been revolutionized by internet accessibility, with students able to access vast information instantly through search engines, digital databases, and online resources, creating unprecedented information availability, while introducing new challenges around source evaluation, information overload, plagiarism, and the death of research skills that previous generations developed through more laborious processes. Google has become default research starting point, with students typing queries and receiving millions of results instantaneously ranked by algorithms they don't understand. Wikipedia provides comprehensive overviews of virtually any topic, constantly updated by contributors worldwide, though teachers often prohibit or discourage its use as primary source, preferring peer-reviewed academic sources. School and public libraries provide access to academic databases, JSTOR, EBSCOhost, ProQuest containing scholarly articles and primary sources. Google Scholar searches academic literature specifically. Digital archives provide access to historical documents and newspapers. Students can access information anywhere with internet connectivity rather than traveling to physical libraries. Research happens much faster. Students can complete basic research in minutes rather than hours or days. However, information abundance creates new problems. Students struggle to evaluate source credibility, often unable to distinguish authoritative sources from unreliable websites, misinformation, or deliberately misleading content. Citation and plagiarism are complicated by copy-paste functionality, with plagiarism detection software like Turnitin catching some but not all copying. Students may lack skills for evaluating bias, identifying propaganda, or understanding context. The ease of finding information has paradoxically made deep research harder, as students satisfied with surface-level Google results rarely dig deeper. Digital literacy education attempts to address these challenges, teaching source evaluation and information literacy skills. Physical libraries have adapted, offering both digital resources and continued value of librarian expertise in navigating information landscapes. However, research has fundamentally changed from information scarcity problem to information evaluation and synthesis challenge. 35. School supplies, 1960s. School supply lists required modest investments in basic, durable items that lasted entire school years or longer, emphasizing functionality over brand names or technology, with relatively minimal financial burden on families and no significant disparities between students based on supply quality, creating visible markers of socioeconomic inequality. Standard supplies included pencils typically yellow, no, 2 pencils sharpened manually, with hand crank sharpeners attached to walls or small handheld sharpeners. Students used pink erasers to correct mistakes on paper assignments. Loose-leaf notebook paper filled 3-ring binders, organized with subject dividers. Composition notebooks with marbled cardboard covers served for specific classes. Blue or black ink pens became permitted in later grades. Crayons 8 or 16 count boxes of Crayola-colored elementary school assignments. Rulers measured lines and created margins. Protractors and compasses assisted geometry work. Lunchboxes, typically metal featuring popular characters, carried sandwiches and thermoses. Book bags or simple backpacks transported materials, though many students simply carried books. Schools often provided textbooks, with students responsible for covering them with paper bags to protect them for future students. Total supply costs rarely exceeded $10 to $15 annually. Supply shopping happened at local 5 and dime stores, drugstores, or department stores. Brand names mattered little, functional supplies were sufficient. Students from different economic backgrounds used essentially identical supplies, minimizing visible wealth disparities. Lost or broken supplies were easily replaced at minimal cost. The simplicity of supply lists reflected simpler pedagogical approaches, requiring fewer specialized materials and less differentiation between students. 2020s. Contemporary school supply requirements have expanded dramatically in variety and cost, incorporating technology that creates significant financial burdens for many families and exacerbates visible inequalities between students, while also reflecting pedagogical evolution toward diverse learning materials, specialized tools, and digital integration that can enhance educational experiences when implemented equitably. Back-to-school shopping has become a major annual expense and retail event. Basic supplies remain pencils, pens, erasers, paper, notebooks, but brands matter more, with students requesting specific products seen as superior or fashionable. Supply lists have lengthened considerably, specifying particular items, specific types of folders, colored pens, highlighters, index cards, graph paper, tissues, hand sanitizer, disinfectant wipes, and classroom supplies that families contribute communally. Technology requirements represent largest expense. Change. Many schools require students to have devices, Chromebooks, iPads, laptops, either purchased by families or provided by schools, with protective cases, headphones, and chargers. Calculators, particularly graphing calculators for advanced math courses, cost $100 or more. Art supplies for specialized courses can be expensive. Backpacks have evolved into expensive items featuring ergonomic designs, multiple compartments, and brand consciousness. Athletic shoes and specific clothing for physical education add costs. Total supply expenses easily reach several $100s per child, creating significant hardship for low-income families, though many schools and charitable organizations provide assistance. Some schools have moved to communal supply systems, where all students' supplies are pooled, reducing inequality visibility. However, technology access creates most significant divide. Students without reliable home, internet, or personal devices face disadvantages in completing homework and accessing educational resources. Schools increasingly provide devices to address this digital divide, though implementation varies. The supply landscape reflects both educational advancement and troubling inequality trends. 36. Standardized testing. 1960s. Standardized testing existed primarily for college admission purposes and occasional state assessments. But testing occupied far less instructional time and generated significantly less anxiety, controversy, and teaching distortion than contemporary testing regimes that have fundamentally reshaped American education in ways both supporters and critics view as profound and problematic. The SAT, Scholastic Aptitude Test, and ACT, American College Testing, were primary standardized tests taken by college-bound students, usually once or perhaps twice during junior or senior year. These tests measured verbal and mathematical reasoning, purporting to predict college success regardless of high school curriculum variations. Iowa Test of Basic Skills or similar achievement tests might occur periodically in elementary and secondary schools, providing general achievement measures. Testing was relatively low stakes. Poor performance might affect college admissions but didn't determine school funding, teacher evaluations, or student grade advancement. Test preparation was minimal. Students might take practice tests from booklets, but test prep courses and tutoring were rare and limited to affluent families. Testing occurred on specific days without extensive advanced preparation or disruption to regular curriculum. Results arrived weeks later by mail. Teachers taught regular curriculum without teaching to the test, because tests weren't tied to teacher accountability. Cultural attitudes viewed standardized tests as one measure among many grades. Class rank, extracurricular activities, and teacher recommendations carried significant weight in college admissions. Some criticism existed around cultural bias and socioeconomic advantages, but testing wasn't politically controversial or educationally central as it would become. 2020s. Standardized testing has proliferated dramatically and become intensely controversial, consuming substantial instructional time, influencing curriculum decisions, creating teacher and student stress, and generating heated political debates about educational accountability, measurement validity, and equity, impacts that reflect fundamental disagreements about education's purposes and assessment's role. Federal mandates, particularly No Child Left Behind, 2001, and subsequent legislation, required annual testing in reading and math for grades 3 through 8, and once in high school, with results determining school funding, teacher evaluations, and school ratings. State-specific tests supplement national tests. Testing season disrupts multiple weeks of instruction for test administration and preparation. Teaching to the test has become common, with teachers focusing instruction on tested content and formats rather than broader educational goals. Test preparation has become an industry. Practice tests, review sessions, and commercial prep programs are ubiquitous. High-stakes nature creates significant student anxiety, with test performance affecting college admissions, scholarship opportunities, and sometimes grade advancement. The SAT and ACT remain important for college admissions, though growing numbers of colleges have adopted test-optional policies, particularly following pandemic disruptions and recognition of socioeconomic and racial score gaps. Critics argue standardized tests perpetuate inequality, as scores correlate strongly with family income and parental education, giving advantages to wealthy families who afford tutoring, test prep courses, and multiple test attempts. Proponents argue tests provide objective achievement measures, preventing grade inflation and ensuring accountability. Opt-out movements have emerged, with parents refusing to allow children to participate in state tests. Testing has fundamentally altered educational practices, with measurable but debatable impacts on learning, equity, and educational quality that continue generating passionate disagreement among educators, parents, policymakers, and researchers. 37. Higher education. 1960s. College attendance was far less universal than contemporary standards, serving primarily middle and upper middle class students, with state university tuitions remarkably affordable by modern standards, allowing students to work part-time jobs to cover educational expenses without accumulating crushing debt that now burdens millions of graduates. Approximately 45% of high school graduates attended college, concentrated among white, middle-class families, with women attending at lower rates than men and people of color facing significant barriers, including discrimination and financial constraints. State university tuition averaged several $100s annually, roughly equivalent to $2,000 to $3,000, adjusted for inflation, allowing students to pay tuition through summer jobs or modest parental contributions. Room and board added costs but remained manageable. Financial aid existed primarily as scholarships and grants rather than loans. Community colleges and state universities provided affordable options for most students. Private universities cost more, but remained accessible to middle-class families without requiring massive loans. College experience emphasized liberal arts education, with less pre-professional focus than contemporary programs. Students selected majors broadly, with less anxiety about employment outcomes. College represented intellectual exploration and social development as much as career preparation. Campus culture included significant political activism, particularly regarding civil rights and Vietnam War. Greek life, athletics, and student organizations flourished. Parental involvement was minimal. Parents dropped students at dorms, and communication happened through weekly phone calls and letters. Students enjoyed significant independence and responsibility for managing their lives. Graduate school attendance was less common and less necessary for career advancement. Overall, college was a transformative experience for those who attended, but not yet seen as essential for economic success. 2020s. Higher education has become significantly more expensive, accessible, and credential-focused, with college degrees viewed as essential for economic mobility, yet increasingly unaffordable, without substantial debt, creating national crisis around student loans, educational equity, and higher education's value proposition that generates political controversy and personal anxiety for students and families navigating complex financial decisions with long-term consequences. Approximately 70% of high school graduates now attend college, though completion rates remain problematic, with many students starting but not finishing degrees. Public university tuition has exploded. Average in-state tuition at public universities exceeds $10,000 annually, with total attendance costs including room, board, fees, and books reaching $25,000 or more yearly. Private universities often exceed $70,000 annually. These costs vastly exceed inflation and wage growth, making college unaffordable without loans, family wealth, or substantial scholarships. Student loan debt exceeds $1.7 trillion nationally, with average borrowers owing $30,000 to $40,000 at graduation debt that constrains life choices around careers, home ownership, family formation, and retirement savings. Federal and state financial aid help but haven't kept pace with cost increases. Community colleges provide affordable alternatives, increasingly serving as transfer pathways to four-year institutions, with some states offering free community college. Online degrees and for-profit institutions have expanded access, but quality varies dramatically, and some institutions have faced fraud accusations. College experience has become increasingly pre-professional, with students anxious about employability, selecting marketable majors, pursuing internships, and building resumes from freshman year. Parental involvement has intensified, with helicopter parents remaining heavily engaged in students' lives. Mental health challenges have increased significantly, with students facing unprecedented stress, anxiety, and depression. Despite challenges, college graduates still earn substantially more than non-graduates on average, though outcomes vary significantly by major, institution, and completion. Debates rage about higher education's value, affordability, and necessary reforms. 38. Student loans, 1960s. Student loan systems were nascent and relatively small scale, with most students financing college through family contributions, personal earnings from part-time and summer employment, scholarships, and modest borrowing that didn't create the lifetime debt burdens that have become normalized in contemporary higher education financing. The federal student loan program was established through the Higher Education Act of 1965, creating guaranteed student loans with subsidized interest rates, but loan volumes remained limited, as college costs were lower and grants more available. Students who borrowed typically owed a few $1,000s at graduation, manageable amounts repayable within years on entry-level salaries. Many students avoided loans entirely, working their way through college at jobs, paying sufficient wages to cover tuition when combined with parental help. State universities maintained low tuition specifically to ensure accessibility without requiring debt. Scholarships based on merit or need provided grant aid that didn't require repayment. The G.I. Bill continued providing educational benefits to veterans. Banks offered some private student loans, but these weren't prevalent. Loan repayment was straightforward, with monthly payments typically manageable on graduate salaries. Default was rare. Student debt didn't significantly constrain post-graduation life choices or delay major life milestones like home ownership or marriage. The concept of student debt crisis didn't exist. Loans were tools, enabling access for students without family resources rather than universal financial burdens, affecting entire generations. This reflected both lower college costs and different philosophies about educational financing and public investment in higher education as social good rather than individual commodity. 2020s. Student loans have become virtually mandatory for college attendance for most students, creating a national crisis affecting tens of millions of borrowers whose debt loads constrain economic mobility, delay life milestones, and generate political controversy around forgiveness proposals, reform necessity, and higher education's affordability that reflects broader anxieties about opportunity, inequality, and generational fairness in American society. 45 million Americans carry student loan debt, totaling $1.7 trillion, exceeding credit card debt and auto loan debt. Average borrowers owe $30,000 to $40,000 upon graduation, with many owing significantly more, particularly those attending private universities or pursuing graduate degrees. Professional degrees in medicine or law can create debt exceeding $200,000. Federal loans include various types, subsidized and unsubsidized. Direct loans, Parent Plus loans, allowing parents to borrow for children's education, and Grad Plus loans. Private loans from banks supplement federal borrowing. Interest accrues during school on unsubsidized loans, capitalizing and increasing total debt. Income-driven repayment plans base monthly payments on earnings, extending repayment over 20 to 25 years, with remaining balances potentially forgiven, though forgiven amounts may be taxable. Public service loan forgiveness promises debt cancellation after 10 years of qualifying public service employment and payments, though program implementation has been troubled with many applicants denied. Default rates are concerning, particularly among students who borrowed but didn't complete degrees, facing debt without credential benefits. Student debt delays homeownership, reduces retirement savings, constrains career choices as graduates pursue high-paying jobs to service debt rather than passion-driven careers, and postpones or prevents family formation. Political debates around loan forgiveness have intensified, with proposals ranging from complete cancellation to targeted relief for low-income borrowers or those defrauded by predatory institutions. The student loan crisis represents policy failure, with federal loan programs enabling continued tuition increases without market discipline while shifting education costs from public investment to individual debt. Solutions remain contested and politically fraught. 39. Extracurricular activities. 1960s. Extracurricular activities provided opportunities for student exploration, skill development, and social connection through relatively informal, low-pressure participation in sports, clubs, and activities that emphasized enjoyment and learning rather than the competitive, resume-building, college admission-focused approaches that now characterize many students' extracurricular experiences. School sports included football, basketball, baseball, track, and cheerleading, with seasons clearly defined and single sport participation common. Participation was significant, but not universal, with many students uninvolved in organized athletics. Competitive intensity was moderate, winning mattered, but didn't dominate at youth levels. Travel for competitions was limited to regional opponents. Specialization was rare. Multi-sport athletes were common and encouraged. Clubs reflected diverse interests: debate, drama, student government, science club, yearbook, newspaper meeting after school with teacher sponsors. Participation was voluntary and interest-driven rather than strategic. Music programs included band, orchestra, and choir, with concerts and competitions but less pressure than contemporary programs. Part-time jobs were common extracurricular activities, with students working at local businesses, developing responsibility, and earning money. Community organizations like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, 4-H, and religious youth groups provided additional activities. Extracurricular participation wasn't viewed as essential for college admission. Grades and test scores dominated applications. Activities were relatively accessible regardless of family income, with minimal fees and equipment costs. Overall, extracurriculars enriched education without creating stress or excessive time commitments that interfered with family time, unstructured play, or academic focus. 2020s. Contemporary extracurricular activities have become increasingly competitive, time-intensive, expensive, and strategic, with college admission pressures driving many families to view activities as resume-building necessities rather than optional enrichment, creating stress, inequality, and concerns about childhood overscheduling that reflect broader anxieties about competitive advantage, achievement culture, and changing nature of youth experiences in achievement-oriented society. Youth sports have intensified dramatically, with year-round training, single sport specialization beginning in elementary school, travel teams requiring significant family time and financial commitments, private coaching supplementing team practices, and emphasis on elite performance and college athletic scholarships. Playing for enjoyment has been largely replaced by competitive intensity that produces burnout and overuse injuries. Sports participation has become expensive. Club team fees, equipment, travel costs, and tournament entries can reach thousands of dollars annually, creating inequality as affluent families access superior training and exposure while low-income families are priced out. Academic clubs and activities similarly emphasize competition and achievement. Math Olympiads, debate tournaments, science fairs, and robotics competitions require significant preparation and travel. Students build resumes from early ages, strategically selecting activities, demonstrating leadership, commitment, and achievement for college applications. College admissions consultants advise families on optimal activity, selections, and positioning. Music and arts programs face budget cuts in schools, with families paying for private lessons. Community service has become expectation rather than altruism, with students volunteering strategically to demonstrate civic engagement. Students frequently participate in multiple activities simultaneously, creating exhausting schedules with limited downtime. Mental health impacts are concerning, with overscheduled students experiencing stress, anxiety, and reduced family time. Inequality has increased, as extracurricular opportunities correlate strongly with family income, providing advantages to wealthy students while disadvantaging lower-income students lacking access. The transformation reflects both positive engagement and troubling trends around childhood, competition, and equity. 40. Special education. 1960s. Students with disabilities face systematic exclusion from mainstream educational opportunities, with limited legal protections, minimal specialized services, and social attitudes, viewing disabilities as shameful conditions, warranting segregation rather than accommodation, reflecting broader societal discrimination that disability rights activists would challenge in subsequent decades through legislation and cultural change campaigns. Approximately 1 million of 8 million children with disabilities received any educational services. Many students with significant disabilities were deemed uneducable and excluded from public schools entirely, remaining home or institutionalized in state facilities with minimal educational programming. Students with learning disabilities or mild cognitive impairments might attend school, but receive no specialized instruction, often failing repeatedly or dropping out. Physical accessibility wasn't required. Schools had stairs without ramps, no accessible bathrooms, and no accommodations for mobility impairments. Deaf and blind students attended separate specialized schools, often residential institutions far from families. Special education classes existed in some schools for students with intellectual disabilities, but these segregated programs offered substandard instruction with low expectations and no integration with general education peers. Teachers received minimal training in disability-related instruction. Individualized education programs didn't exist. Parent involvement in educational planning was minimal or non-existent. Diagnostic capabilities were limited, with many conditions unrecognized or misunderstood. Students with ADHD, dyslexia, autism, or other learning differences attended regular classes without support, often punished for behavioral manifestations of undiagnosed conditions. Social attitudes emphasized conformity and normalization rather than acceptance of difference. The medical model of disability dominated, viewing disabilities as individual deficits, requiring fixing rather than as natural human variation, requiring environmental accommodation and social support. 2020s. Special education has been transformed by federal legislation, particularly the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, guaranteeing free, appropriate public education in least restrictive environments for all students with disabilities. Though implementation varies significantly and families frequently struggle to secure adequate services, reflecting tensions between legal ideals and practical realities of educational resource allocation and ongoing attitudinal barriers. IDEA requires individualized education programs, IEPs, for eligible students, developed collaboratively by teams including parents, teachers, specialists, and administrators, specifying goals, services, and accommodations tailored to individual needs. Students receive specialized instruction from trained special education teachers. Related services like speech therapy, occupational therapy, and counseling, and accommodations like extended test time or assistive technology. Inclusion is emphasized, with students educated alongside non-disabled peers to maximum extent, appropriate rather than automatically segregated. Physical accessibility is required under ADA, with ramps, elevators, and accessible facilities. Early intervention services identify and support children with disabilities from birth. Diagnostic capabilities have improved dramatically, with more conditions recognized and understood: autism spectrum disorders, ADHD, dyslexia, and numerous other conditions now have evidence-based interventions. However, significant challenges remain. Special education is chronically underfunded, with schools struggling to provide services legally required. Disproportionality persists, with students of color overrepresented in certain disability categories, suggesting bias in identification. Parents must often advocate assertively or hire attorneys to secure appropriate services. Teacher shortages in special education mean students taught by underqualified staff. Tensions exist between inclusion ideals and practical implementation, with debate about what constitutes least restrictive environment for students with significant needs. Transition services preparing students for post-school life remain inadequate. Despite enormous progress, students with disabilities face ongoing discrimination, low expectations, and inadequate support, reflecting continued societal ambivalence about disability and inclusion. 41. Television. 1960s. Television viewing centered on three major broadcast networks: ABC, CBS, and NBC, offering limited programming choices that created shared cultural experiences as families gathered around single television sets for scheduled broadcasts. Programming included evening news with trusted anchors like Walter Cronkite, variety shows, westerns, sitcoms, and dramatic series. Television was appointment viewing. Missing episodes meant waiting for summer reruns, since recording technology didn't exist for consumers. Families watched together, negotiating channel selection and experiencing entertainment collectively. Broadcasting ended late evening with national anthem and test patterns until morning programming resumed. Shows reflected conservative values and limited diversity. Commercials interrupted programs regularly, funding free broadcast model. Color television was emerging luxury, with most households still owning black and white sets. Antennas required adjustment for clear reception, and geographic location determined available channels. Television profoundly shaped American culture, creating water-cooler conversations about previous night's programming and establishing celebrities whose fame reached nearly every household simultaneously through limited channel options. 2020s. Contemporary television has fragmented into hundreds of cable channels plus numerous streaming services: Netflix, Disney+, Hulu, HBO Max, Amazon Prime, offering unlimited content accessible anytime on multiple devices including televisions, computers, tablets, and smartphones. Appointment viewing has largely disappeared, replaced by on-demand streaming and binge-watching entire seasons immediately upon release. Families rarely watch together, instead consuming personalized content individually in separate rooms or on personal devices. Content diversity has exploded, with programming targeting niche audiences and representing broader demographic representation. Commercial-free streaming competes with traditional advertising-supported television. Smart TVs connect directly to internet services, eliminating broadcast dependency. Recommendation algorithms suggest content based on viewing history. International programming reaches American audiences easily. However, fragmentation means fewer shared cultural moments, as audiences splinter across countless options. Streaming service proliferation requires multiple subscriptions, potentially exceeding cable costs. The television landscape reflects broader cultural shifts toward personalization, convenience, and individual choice over shared communal experiences. 42. Movies, 1960s. Moviegoing was primary out-of-home entertainment, with audiences attending ornate downtown theaters or popular drive-in theaters that accommodated families in automobiles for evening double features under stars. Theaters featured single screens showing one film for extended runs, with audiences dressing somewhat formally and attending as special occasions. Drive-ins peaked in popularity, offering affordable family entertainment where children could sleep in back seats during second features. Ticket prices averaged $1 for adults, 50 cents for children. Concession stands sold popcorn, candy, and sodas at reasonable prices. Hollywood studio system produced films across genres, westerns, musicals, dramas, comedies with major stars drawing audiences. Moviegoing was a social event, with couples dating at theaters and families attending weekend matinees. No home video meant theatrical release was only opportunity to see films, driving repeat viewings. Coming attractions previewed upcoming releases. Movies reflected cultural attitudes and censorship codes limiting content. The experience emphasized grandeur and escape, with elaborate theater architecture and big-screen spectacle impossible to replicate at home. 2020s. Contemporary movie consumption has shifted dramatically toward home viewing through streaming services, premium video on demand, and large home television systems. Though theatrical experience persists for blockbuster releases and remains culturally significant despite challenges from home entertainment options. Multiplexes with 15 to 20 screens offer numerous simultaneous viewing options. Ticket prices have increased to $12 to $15 or more, with premium formats like IMAX commanding higher prices. Theaters compete by offering luxury recliners, reserved seating, full meal service, and enhanced audio-visual technology. However, streaming services release films directly to homes, particularly accelerated during COVID-19 pandemic, with simultaneous theatrical and streaming releases becoming common. Home theater systems with large screens and surround sound approximate theatrical experiences. Movie attendance has declined among younger audiences preferring convenient home viewing. Blockbuster franchise films dominate theatrical releases, superhero movies, sequels, reboots, while mid-budget adult dramas shift to streaming platforms. The theatrical window between theatrical and home release has compressed significantly. Despite challenges, theaters survive by emphasizing communal experience and spectacle, impossible to fully replicate at home, though the movie industry continues adapting to evolving consumption preferences. 43. Music consumption. 1960s. Music consumption, centered on vinyl records played on home stereo systems and radio broadcasts that introduced listeners to new artists and songs through disc jockey programming and limited station formats. Teenagers and young adults purchased 45 RPM singles featuring hit songs or 33 RPM albums containing full collections. Records required physical purchases at music stores where listeners couldn't preview before buying. Radio was primary music discovery method, with AM stations playing top 40 hits and emerging FM stations offering album-oriented rock formats. Listening was active, experience carefully placing needles on spinning records, flipping sides midway through albums, and organizing record collections. Album artwork was significant, with 12-inch covers providing visual artistry and liner notes, offering information about artists and songs. Portable music was limited to transistor radios. Live concerts occurred at venues ranging from small clubs to large auditoriums, but recording quality was poor, making bootleg concert recordings rare. Music-bound generations, Beatles, Rolling Stones, Motown artists created shared cultural touchstones. Physical music collections represented personal identity and investment. 2020s. Modern music consumption is dominated by streaming services. Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, offering instant access to tens of millions of songs for monthly subscription fees, fundamentally transforming music discovery, ownership concepts, and artist compensation models, while enabling unprecedented convenience and variety. Listeners create personalized playlists, receive algorithm-generated recommendations, and discover new artists through curated playlists and social media. Physical music ownership has largely disappeared. Streaming dominates, with vinyl experiencing niche resurgence among collectors and audiophiles. Music accompanies daily activities through smartphones and wireless earbuds, with portability enabling constant soundtrack to life. Social media platforms like TikTok drive music discovery and hit songs through viral trends. Artists release music directly to audiences without traditional record label intermediaries. Though streaming economics favor established artists over emerging musicians, with per-stream payments measured in fractions of cents. Concert attendance remains popular, with festivals and stadium tours generating significant revenue as recorded music profits declined. Live streaming concerts emerged during pandemic. Music has become ubiquitous and disposable, with unlimited access reducing the preciousness individual songs or albums held when physical purchases required financial and intentional commitment. 44. Radio. 1960s. Radio was dominated by AM, amplitude modulation, broadcasting, with local stations providing music, news, talk programming, and disc jockeys who became community personalities through distinctive voices and song selections that shaped local musical tastes. Top 40 format reigned, with stations playing hit songs in heavy rotation based on record sales and requests. AM radio reached large geographic areas, allowing rural listeners to access distant city stations at night when signals traveled further. FM, frequency modulation, radio existed, but was relatively uncommon, offering classical music and educational programming with superior sound quality, but limited audiences. Radio ownership was universal, with households owning multiple receivers and automobile radio standard. Disc jockeys wielded significant influence, breaking new artists through airplay decisions. Radio advertising supported free broadcasting, with local businesses sponsoring programs. Transistor radios enabled portability. Radio programming created appointment listening, with popular shows attracting dedicated audiences. Call-in shows fostered community interaction. Radio was primary source for news updates between newspaper editions and evening television broadcasts. The medium's immediacy and intimacy created powerful connections between broadcasters and listeners. 2020s. Contemporary radio has diversified into traditional AM, divided by FM broadcasting, satellite radio, internet radio, and podcasts, competing for listeners whose attention is divided among numerous audio entertainment options, accessible through smartphones, smart speakers, and connected vehicles. FM radio dominates traditional broadcasting, with AM declining except for news divided by talk formats. Corporate consolidation through companies like iHeartRadio and Cumulus reduced local programming and disc jockey personality in favor of nationally syndicated content and automated playlists. Satellite radio services like SiriusXM offer commercial-free music and exclusive content for subscription fees. Internet radio stations stream globally, eliminating geographic limitations. However, podcasts represent the most significant evolution, with hundreds of thousands of shows covering every imaginable topic, from true crime to comedy to education. Podcasts allow on-demand listening, creating radio-like intimacy while enabling convenient consumption during commutes, exercise, or chores. Smart speakers enable voice-activated radio access. Traditional radio audiences skew older, with younger demographics preferring streaming music and podcasts. Despite competition, radio remains significant for commuters and those seeking live content, news, and traffic updates, though its cultural dominance has diminished substantially from earlier eras. 45. Gaming. 1960s. Gaming meant primarily board games like Monopoly, Scrabble, Risk, and Checkers, played at dining tables during family game nights, plus outdoor physical play including neighborhood games, sports, and imagination-driven activities that fostered social interaction, physical activity, and creative play without electronic mediation. Board games brought families together regularly, teaching strategy, patience, and social skills through face-to-face competition and cooperation. Card games like poker, bridge, and gin rummy were popular among adults. Children played outdoor games, tag, hide-and-seek, kickball, and elaborate imaginary scenarios with neighborhood friends, unsupervised by today's standards. Pick-up basketball, baseball, and football games organized spontaneously. Toys encouraged creative play building blocks, dolls, action figures, model kits. Arcades didn't exist yet, Pinball machines in bowling alleys and diners represented electronic gaming. Television viewing and reading provided additional entertainment, but occupied less time than contemporary screen engagement. Play was largely unstructured and child-directed rather than organized by adults. Physical activity was inherent in play, rather than requiring deliberate exercise. Gaming costs were minimal board game purchases, and outdoor play were free. The gaming landscape emphasized social interaction and physical activity. 2020s. Modern gaming is dominated by video games played on consoles. PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo Switch, computers, and mobile devices, with gaming evolving into massive entertainment industry exceeding movies and music combined. While traditional board games experience resurgence and outdoor play declines amid concerns about sedentary lifestyles and screen time impacts on children's development, video games range from casual mobile games to complex multiplayer online experiences connecting global players. Esports have emerged as spectator sport, with professional gamers earning substantial incomes and competitions filling arenas. Gaming culture includes streaming on Twitch and YouTube, where audiences watch others play games. Virtual reality and augmented reality create immersive gaming experiences. Mobile gaming via smartphones reached billions of players worldwide. However, concerns exist about gaming addiction, sedentary behavior, contributing to obesity, and social isolation despite online connectivity. Parents struggle with screen time management. Nevertheless, gaming develops skills including problem-solving, hand-eye coordination, and strategic thinking. Board games are experiencing renaissance among adults seeking screen-free social experiences. Gaming accessibility has improved with adaptive controllers for disabled players. The industry's growth reflects technological advancement and changing entertainment preferences, though balance between digital gaming and physical activity remains cultural concern. 46. Photography. 1960s. Photography required film cameras loaded with 35mm or other film formats, with photographers carefully composing shots. Knowing film development costs and limited exposures per roll encouraged selective, thoughtful image-making rather than the prolific casual photography characterizing contemporary practices. Cameras were mechanical devices requiring manual focus, exposure settings, and film advancement. Photographers purchased film rolls containing 12, 24, or 36 exposures, shot carefully to avoid wasting frames, then delivered film to drugstores or photo shops for chemical development, taking days or weeks. Prints returned in envelopes, revealing results for first time. No instant preview meant not knowing whether shots captured intended moments until development. Failed photos represented wasted money and missed memories. Photo albums preserved printed pictures, carefully arranged and sometimes annotated. Sharing photos meant showing physical prints to visitors or mailing copies to distant relatives. Professional photographers handled weddings, portraits, and special occasions. Polaroid instant cameras emerged, producing immediate prints, but with higher per-photo costs. Photography was deliberate craft requiring technical knowledge and financial investment, making it special occasion activity rather than constant documentation of daily life. 2020s. Digital photography through smartphones has democratized image making, with billions of photos taken daily and instantly shared globally via social media, fundamentally transforming photography from selective documentation into constant live streaming, while raising questions about memory, authenticity, and privacy in image-saturated culture. Smartphone cameras produce high-quality images, rivaling dedicated cameras for casual photography, with computational photography using software to enhance images automatically. Unlimited digital storage enables photographing everything without cost constraints. Instant preview allows retaking unsuccessful shots immediately. Photo editing apps provide sophisticated enhancement tools. Social media platforms, Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, enable instant global sharing, transforming personal photography into public performance. Cloud storage automatically backs up and organizes photos. Professional photography persists for important events, though many people self-document weddings and milestones. Digital cameras offer superior capabilities for serious photographers, but smartphone convenience dominates casual photography. However, photo abundance creates challenges managing thousands of images, decreased specialness of individual photos, and privacy concerns about facial recognition and unauthorized sharing. The paradox exists that despite taking vastly more photos, People may preserve fewer memories meaningfully, as digital photos remain unprinted and unorganized in digital archives rarely revisited. 47. Sports viewing, 1960s. Sports viewing was limited to occasional broadcasts of major events, weekend games, and brief highlights on evening news, with attendance at live games representing primary sports consumption for dedicated fans, creating scarcity that intensified sports' cultural significance when broadcasts occurred. Television networks broadcast limited sports programming, perhaps one baseball game weekly, NFL games on Sunday afternoons, college football on Saturdays. World Series, Super Bowl, and Olympics received significant coverage. Most games weren't televised, requiring attendance for viewing or listening to radio broadcasts. Sports highlights appeared briefly on evening news. No dedicated sports programming existed, no instant replay initially. Viewers saw plays once in real time. Commentary was straightforward, play-by-play, without extensive analysis. Sports fandom was local, and regional fans followed hometown teams primarily, with limited exposure to national sports beyond occasional major events. Sports coverage assumed male audiences. Women's sports received virtually no coverage. Statistical analysis was minimal. Sports occupied appropriate proportion of entertainment landscape, rather than dominating as contemporary multi-billion-dollar industry. 2020s. Contemporary sports viewing features. 24-hour sports networks, ESPN, and competitors broadcasting constant sports content including live games, analysis, highlights, documentaries, and debate shows, plus streaming services offering access to every professional and college game globally, transforming sports into omnipresent entertainment, consuming significant viewer attention, and generating unprecedented revenue. Multiple games broadcast simultaneously across networks and streaming platforms. Viewers access sports constantly through smartphones, tablets, and computers beyond traditional television. Replay technology, multiple camera angles, and sophisticated graphics enhance viewing experiences. Fantasy sports engage millions in virtual team management, deepening investment in player statistics and game outcomes. Sports betting has expanded dramatically following legalization, with gambling odds and promotions integrated into broadcasts. Women's sports receive increased coverage, though inequality persists. International sports reach American audiences easily. Social media provides instant highlights and commentary. However, traditional television viewership declines among younger audiences, preferring short-form highlights over full games. Cord-cutting challenges, sports broadcasting models dependent on cable subscriptions. Despite changes, sports remain cultural touchstone, bringing communities together, with major events like Super Bowl maintaining massive audiences and shared cultural experiences increasingly rare in fragmented media landscape. 48. News consumption, 1960s. News consumption followed predictable daily rhythms with morning newspapers delivered to homes, brief radio news updates throughout day, and evening television newscasts that families gathered to watch at 6 or 7 p.m., creating shared information environment where most Americans received similar news from limited trusted sources. Newspapers provided comprehensive coverage with morning editions containing previous day's news and evening editions updating major stories. 3 television networks offered 30-minute evening newscasts, anchored by authoritative figures whose credibility influenced public opinion significantly. News was gatekept by professional journalists and editors, making decisions about what information deserved coverage. Reporting emphasized objectivity, with opinion segregated to editorial pages. News cycles were slow stories developed over days, as reporters investigated and verified information before publication. Newsrooms employed large staffs of reporters, editors, and fact-checkers. Foreign news came through wire services with correspondents in major world capitals. Breaking news was truly breaking unexpected events created special reports. News photography was black and white in most newspapers. The model created informed citizenry sharing common factual baseline, though limited perspectives and voices influenced coverage, particularly marginalizing minority communities. 2020s. Modern news consumption is characterized by 24-hour news cycles, infinite online sources, social media distribution, and algorithm-driven personalization, creating fragmented information environment where citizens inhabit different factual realities based on source selection, raising concerns about polarization, misinformation, and democracy's foundation requiring shared factual understanding. Cable news networks CNN, Fox News, MSNBC broadcast continuously, requiring constant content, generating repetitive coverage and blurred lines between news and commentary. Online news provides instant updates through websites, apps, and social media, with breaking news alerts interrupting daily activities. Citizen journalism through smartphones captures events immediately. However, business model collapse of traditional newspapers reduced investigative journalism capacity as advertising revenue shifted online. Social media algorithms curate news feeds based on engagement, creating echo chambers reinforcing existing beliefs. Misinformation and disinformation spread rapidly online, with fact-checking struggling to correct false information amplified by social sharing. Trust in media has declined amid political polarization and fake news accusations. News has become partisan, with audiences selecting sources confirming worldviews rather than challenging assumptions. The transformation creates informed but polarized populace, with consensus reality fragmenting into competing narratives that challenge democratic discourse, requiring shared factual foundation for productive disagreement about solutions. 49. Celebrity culture, 1960s. Celebrity culture centered on movie stars, television personalities, and musicians whose carefully managed public images projected glamour and mystique through controlled media appearances, studio publicity departments, and fan magazines that created distance between celebrities and audiences, fostering admiration and aspiration, rather than the parasocial intimacy characterizing contemporary celebrity relationships. Hollywood studios controlled star images, arranging publicity, managing scandals, and curating public personas distinct from private lives. Movie stars like Elizabeth Taylor, Cary Grant, and Audrey Hepburn represented unattainable glamour. Television personalities from variety shows and sitcoms entered living rooms weekly. Musicians like Elvis Presley and Beatles generated intense fandom. Celebrities were rare and special. Limited media meant fewer opportunities for fame, and maintaining celebrity required exceptional talent or beauty. Fans encountered celebrities through films, television appearances, and occasional magazine profiles or interviews. Autograph seeking occurred, but paparazzi culture was nascent. Celebrity worship existed, but with recognition that stars lived different lives than ordinary people. The relationship was one-directional. Celebrities communicated to audiences without expectation of response or relationship beyond appreciation. This distance maintained celebrity mystique and aspirational quality that contributed to their cultural power. 2020s. Contemporary celebrity culture has democratized and intensified through social media, creating new celebrity categories including influencers, YouTubers, and TikTok stars who build followings through direct audience engagement, while traditional celebrities maintain public presence through social platforms that collapse distance between famous and ordinary, fostering parasocial relationships where audiences feel intimate connections with celebrities they've never met. Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok allow celebrities sharing daily life directly with followers' meals, workouts, thoughts, creating accessibility and authenticity, real or performed, that traditional celebrity distance never permitted. Influencers monetize followings through sponsored content and brand partnerships, with some earning millions from social media presence rather than traditional talent or achievement. Reality television created celebrities famous simply for being famous. Celebrity culture is omnipresent. Entertainment news dominates media, and celebrity opinions on politics and social issues receive significant attention. However, the relationship remains asymmetrical despite intimacy. Illusion, celebrities know audiences collectively but not individually, while fans feel personal connections to celebrities who don't know they exist, creating parasocial relationships that can be psychologically complicated. Cancel culture holds celebrities accountable for problematic behavior through social media campaigns, though whether accountability or excessive punishment occurs remains debated. Celebrity has become simultaneously more accessible and more manufactured, with image management occurring through personal social media rather than studio publicity departments. Here's the shortened version. 50. Hobbies. 1960s hobbies emphasized hands-on creativity, and social clubs model building, stamp collecting, photography with darkroom development, ham radio, woodworking, sewing, gardening, and birdwatching. Activities required minimal investment and developed through patient practice. 2020s blend traditional crafts experiencing resurgences with digital pursuits like gaming and content creation. Online communities replace geographic clubs. YouTube tutorials enable learning any skill. However, concerns exist whether screen-based hobbies provide benefits of hands-on activities requiring sustained attention and physical manipulation. 51. Grocery shopping. 1960s shopping occurred at neighborhood stores requiring multiple stops, with personal relationships between shopkeepers and customers. Cashiers manually rang purchases, often knowing regulars by name. Shopping was primarily women's responsibility, happening weekly with cash or checks. 2020s feature massive supercenters carrying 40,000 to 50,000 products. Self-checkout and delivery apps like Instacart enable avoiding physical stores entirely. Shopping has become efficient but impersonal, with algorithms replacing relationships and convenience prioritized over community connection. 52. Food prices. 1960s families spent approximately 18% of income on food, despite low nominal prices, milk 50 cents per gallon, bread 20 cents per loaf. However, minimum wage was $1.25 per hour. 2020s see food consuming smaller budget percentages, averaging 10%, though with significant variation. Processed foods are relatively inexpensive compared to fresh, healthy ingredients, creating a situation where unhealthy, convenient foods are often cheaper than nutritious options, contributing to diet-related health disparities. 53. Restaurant culture. 1960s. Dining occurred primarily at local diners and independent restaurants serving regional American cuisine, reserved for special occasions. Service was personal, with waitresses knowing regular customers. Menus were simple, featuring 20 to 30 items emphasizing local ingredients. 2020s encompass enormous diversity chains dominating suburbs, fast casual concepts, food trucks, and fine dining requiring advance reservations. Instagram-worthy presentation matters. Many Americans eat restaurant meals multiple times weekly, with dining out normalized rather than special. 54. Fast food. 1960s saw emerging industry with McDonald's pioneering standardized preparation, offering 15-cent hamburgers. Limited menus emphasized speed and affordability. Fast food was occasional treat rather than regular meal source. 2020s feature ubiquitous presence with major chains operating tens of thousands of locations. Extensive menus now include salads, specialty items, and breakfast all day. Mobile apps enable ordering before arrival. Despite criticism regarding nutrition and obesity contributions, fast food remains deeply embedded, offering convenience and affordability. 55. Dining out frequency. 1960s families dined out rarely, typically monthly or less, limited to special occasions. Home-cooked meals provided daily nutrition, with mothers preparing breakfast, lunches, and dinners. Cultural attitudes viewed excessive restaurant dining as extravagant. 2020s see Americans dining out multiple times weekly, with some individuals rarely cooking. Average households spend over $3,000 to $1,000 annually on restaurant food. Busy schedules and dual income pressures limit time for home cooking, fundamentally transforming eating patterns as shared family dinners decline dramatically. 56. Dietary awareness. 1960s nutritional awareness was basic, guided by 4 food groups without sophisticated understanding of dietary health impacts. Processed foods were viewed as modern conveniences without suspicion. Sugar consumption wasn't concerning. Vegetarianism was extremely rare. 2020s feature specialized diets: keto, paleo, vegan, Mediterranean, intermittent fasting. Macronutrient tracking through apps is widespread. Plant-based diets have mainstream adoption. However, information overload creates confusion with contradictory studies and diet fads, making determining healthy eating challenging. 57. Food preparation. 1960s, centered on from-scratch cooking, with women spending substantial daily time preparing meals through generational techniques. Convenience foods like TV dinners emerged, but most meals involve substantial preparation. Cooking was essential household skill passed from mothers to daughters. 2020s range from scratch cooking among enthusiasts to minimal preparation relying on prepared foods and meal kits. Many young adults lack basic cooking knowledge, relying instead on restaurants. Cooking has become optional hobby rather than necessary skill. 58. Kitchen tools. 1960s featured basic multifunctional implements: knives, wooden spoons, whisks with limited specialized gadgets. Manual tools required physical effort like rotary beaters and hand-crank mills. Appliances were limited to electric mixers, blenders, toasters, kitchens were functional workspaces, emphasizing technique over equipment. 2020s overflow with specialized gadgets promising simplified tasks. Instant pots, air fryers, sous vide circulators, smart appliances. However, many items see minimal use, reflecting consumer culture and aspirational cooking identities rather than practical necessity. 59. Coffee culture 1960s, centered on simple home brewing using percolators, producing plain black coffee consumed with cream and sugar. Diner coffee served endless refills for modest prices. Coffee was utilitarian beverage providing alertness rather than artisanal experience. 2020s feature specialty coffee movement, with Starbucks normalizing expensive daily purchases $5 to $7 for elaborate drinks. Third wave coffee emphasizes single-origin beans and precise brewing methods. Coffee has become identity marker and lifestyle product commanding remarkable price premiums through branding. 60. Alcohol consumption. 1960s featured simple drinking culture with beer, whiskey, and basic cocktails consumed primarily by men. Domestic lagers dominated with limited variety. 3 martini business lunches were common. Drunk driving wasn't taken seriously. Alcoholism was viewed as moral failing. 2020s see dramatic diversification. Craft breweries, wine appreciation, cocktail renaissance, with mixologists creating elaborate drinks. However, sober curious movement questions alcohol's social centrality. Awareness of health impacts has increased. Cultural tension exists between celebrating diversity and acknowledging alcohol's health hazards. 61. Everyday fashion 60s. Formality ruled daily dress. Men wore suits to offices, women wore dresses, shopping, children dressed formally for school. Clothing was expensive, encouraging fewer quality pieces with regular maintenance. Clear distinctions existed between home, work, and special occasion attire, reflecting values around public presentation and respectability. 20s. Casualization dominates jeans, athleisure, and sneakers acceptable everywhere. Fast fashion enables frequent wardrobe updates despite quality decline. Remote work accelerated informality. Comfort and individual expression replace conformity, though designer brands remain status markers for wealthy, while sustainability concerns grow. 62. Hairstyles 60s. Conservative gender-specific norms prevailed early. Women maintained teased bouffants requiring salon visits. Men wore short, neat cuts. Later, Beatles-inspired longer men's hair sparked generational conflicts. African Americans faced discrimination over natural hair, with straightening common before black pride reclaimed natural textures. 20s. Unprecedented diversity embraces all styles, colors, and textures. Men's grooming industry exploded. Women's at-home tools enable salon-quality results. Natural hair acceptance growing, with Crown Act legislation addressing discrimination. Individual expression valued over conformity, though professional expectations still constrain some choices. 63. Makeup and cosmetics 60s. Natural enhancement emphasized foundation, powder, blush, lipstick, in reds divided by pinks. Later decade introduced dramatic looks with pale lips, heavy mascara. Makeup explicitly gendered, men wearing cosmetics unthinkable. Women expected to wear makeup publicly. Products relatively expensive, limited collection standard. 20s. Sophisticated artistry explosion. Countless products from no makeup looks to dramatic expression. YouTube tutorials, beauty influencers drive trends. Growing male makeup acceptance. However, social media creates unrealistic filtered standards, pressuring perfection, while body positivity movements challenge narrow ideals. 64. Shopping methods. 60s. Physical retail, exclusively downtown department stores, suburban shopping centers, mail-order catalogs. Shopping was social occasion requiring time investment. Knowledgeable sales staff provided personal assistance. Women dressed up for shopping trips. No credit cards initially. Purchases carefully wrapped. 20s. E-commerce revolutionized retail. Amazon dominates, enabling smartphone purchasing with delivery within hours. Online shopping devastated physical stores, causing mall closures and bankruptcy. Infinite selection, customer reviews, easy returns, provide convenience but reduce human connection and community spaces stores once provided. 65. Clothing costs 60s. Clothing consumed 10% of income versus 3% today. Quality garments built to last required higher costs but provided years of wear through maintenance. People owned fewer clothes in curated wardrobes worn repeatedly. Tailoring altered clothes for better fit. 20s. Fast fashion, dramatically lowered prices. H&M, Shein produced trendy garments extraordinarily cheaply. Americans own vastly more clothing but wear items fewer times before discarding. However, environmental devastation and exploitative labor conditions reveal cheap clothing's true costs beyond price tags. 66. Shoe culture. 60s. Limited ownership, few pairs serving specific functions. Men owned dress shoes, casual leather shoes, athletic sneakers for sports. Quality construction warranted care through polishing, resoling. Shoes served functional purposes rather than expressing identity. Cobblers extended lifespans through repairs. 20s. Explosive sneaker culture. Athletic shoes transformed into fashion essentials, collectibles, status symbols. Limited releases command extraordinary resale prices. Sneaker enthusiasts collect hundreds of rarely worn pairs. However, sneakers worn casually everywhere, acceptable with business attire, reflecting consumerism, creating desire beyond functional needs. 67. Accessories. 60s. Traditional items served functional purposes. Watches told time, jewelry marked occasions, hats protected from elements, gloves completed formal outfits. Accessories relatively simple, few in number. Men's accessories minimal. Emphasis on function, propriety, subtle status, signaling through quality craftsmanship. 20s. Technology accessories dominate smartphones, wireless earbuds, smartwatches, fitness trackers, essential connectivity tools and status symbols. Designer handbags command premium prices, signaling wealth. Brand consciousness extreme, with logo-heavy accessories broadcasting affiliations. Line between gadget and accessory blurred as technology becomes fashion. 68. Body image. 60s. Narrow beauty standards. Slender women with hourglass figures achieved through girdles. Muscular but not bulky men. Limited media representation created homogeneous ideals. Minimal public conversation about body acceptance or psychological impacts. Fat bodies faced discrimination. No body positivity movement existed. 20s. Contradictions abound. Social media intensifies pressure through filtered images alongside growing body positivity movements. Cosmetic surgery normalized. Fitness culture emphasizes toned physiques. However, representation improved with diverse body types in media. Tension exists between acceptance, rhetoric, and billion-dollar industries profiting from insecurities. 69. Personal grooming. 60s. Straightforward routines with basic products: soap, shampoo, deodorant, toothpaste. Bathing several times weekly acceptable. Few specialized products necessary. Excessive grooming attention suggested vanity. Routines relatively quick and inexpensive. Grooming was functional maintenance rather than elaborate self-care ritual. 20s. Elaborate multi-step routines, serums, essences, exfoliants, masks. Korean beauty 10+ step regimens influenced Western markets. Men's grooming industry exploded, normalizing extensive skincare once exclusively feminine. Self-care rhetoric positions consumption as wellness practice. Countless specialized products marketed through sophisticated campaigns. 70. Formal wear. 60s. Formal occasions frequent and strictly observed. Weddings, proms, religious services, fine dining, theater required specific garments. Men wore tuxedos or dark suits. Women wore evening gowns. Church required Sunday best. Dress codes explicit and enforced. Formality created specialness around occasions. 20s. Formal wear occasions diminished significantly as casual culture penetrated formally formal contexts. Weddings remain primary formal occasion. Black tie events occur primarily in affluent circles. Business formal declined. Fine dining and theater accept wide clothing range. Decline reflects democratization but also loss of specialness. 71. Doctor visits. 60s. Family physicians made house calls, knew patients intimately across decades, provided comprehensive care creating continuity and trust. Office visits straightforward, with short waits, personal attention. Costs modest, often paid directly. Diagnostic tools basic. Medical relationship emphasized personal knowledge and paternalism. 20s. Specialized, technology-enabled, insurance-mediated healthcare through large systems emphasizes efficiency over relationships. House calls disappeared except concierge medicine. Appointments scheduled weeks ahead, lasting 15 minutes. Electronic records create coordination challenges. Despite advanced diagnostics, MRIs, genetic testing, many feel rushed, unheard, frustrated by fragmentation. 72. Medical technology. 60s. Relatively basic, diagnostic tools, stethoscopes, blood pressure cuffs, thermometers, physician examination skills. X-rays provided limited imaging with radiation concerns. Blood tests analyzed basic chemistry. Surgical techniques involved large incisions, longer recoveries. Antibiotics revolutionized infection treatment. Physicians relied heavily on clinical skills. 20s. Extraordinary capabilities through advanced imaging. CT scans, MRI, PET scans detect conditions early. Minimally invasive robotic surgery reduces recovery times. Targeted cancer therapies, immunotherapy, precision medicine, tailor treatments to genetic profiles. Wearable technology tracks health data. However, technology costs drive healthcare expenses, creating inequality. 73. Prescriptions. 60s. Limited medication variety compared to contemporary options. Antibiotics revolutionized infection treatment. Emerging medications for chronic conditions. Birth control pills, revolutionary. Pharmacies filled handwritten prescriptions personally. No direct-to-consumer advertising. Generic medications limited. Costs relatively low, affordable without insurance coverage. 20s. Thousands of medications treating virtually every condition. Many Americans take multiple daily prescriptions. Direct-to-consumer advertising creates patient demand. However, skyrocketing costs create access barriers. Insulin rationing causes deaths among uninsured diabetics. Complex insurance formularies restrict medications. Opioid crisis demonstrated prescription dangers and industry's profit over patient priorities. 74. Mental health. 60s. Heavily stigmatized with limited understanding. Serious mental illnesses resulted in long-term institutionalization in overcrowded asylums, with sometimes abusive conditions. Electroconvulsive therapy and lobotomies occasionally performed. Psychoanalysis dominated expensive psychotherapy. Mental illness carried profound stigma. Families hid affected members. Depression, anxiety, PTSD rarely recognized. 20s. Significantly reduced stigma, increased awareness, expanded treatment options, diverse psychotherapies, medications with fewer side effects. Teletherapy improved access. However, significant gaps remain: provider shortages, insurance limitations, costs create barriers. Youth mental health crisis involves rising anxiety, depression, suicide rates linked partly to social media. 75. Fitness culture. 60s. Minimal fitness culture. Physical activity occurred through daily labor, household tasks, walking, recreational sports, childhood play, rather than structured exercise. Gyms, rare, serving bodybuilders and athletes. Home equipment, minimal. Yoga, virtually unknown. Physical activity, integrated naturally into lifestyles requiring movement. 20s. Massive industry with gyms, boutique studios, personal trainers, fitness apps, wearable technology. Peloton brought studio classes home. Fitness influencers promote workouts on social media. However, culture creates pressures, social comparison, body image anxieties, implied moral judgments. Fitness accessibility varies by income. 76. Smoking. 60s. Ubiquitous. 42% of Americans smoked regularly everywhere. Offices, restaurants, airplanes, hospitals. No restrictions existed. Minimal health consequence awareness, despite emerging research. Extensively advertised, featuring doctors endorsing brands. Cultural attitudes viewed smoking as sophisticated personal choice rather than dangerous addiction requiring regulation. 20s. Dramatic decline to 14% through public health campaigns, taxation, advertising restrictions, comprehensive smoking bans. Cigarettes cost $7 to $15 per pack. Smoking heavily stigmatized, associated with lower socioeconomic status. However, e-cigarettes and vaping created new youth nicotine addiction concerns. 77. Life expectancy 60s. Averaged approximately 70 years, 67 for men, 73 for women. Significant racial disparities existed, with African Americans living 6 to 8 fewer years than white Americans. Infant mortality higher. Childhood diseases killed before widespread vaccination. Healthcare access varied dramatically by race, location, income. 20s. Increased to approximately 78 years overall, 76 for men, 81 for women. Medical advances enable treating previously fatal conditions. However, progress slowed from opioid epidemic, COVID-19 pandemic. Persistent racial and socioeconomic disparities demonstrate longevity gains haven't been distributed equitably. 78. Vaccinations, 60s. Expanding dramatically following polio vaccine development, ending terrifying epidemics. Growing childhood immunization schedules prevented measles, mumps, rubella. Uncontroversial public health triumph with nearly universal acceptance. Parents viewed vaccines as miracles protecting children. School entry requirements ensured high vaccination rates. Vaccine hesitancy essentially non-existent. 20s. Dramatically expanded schedules protecting against numerous diseases including HPV, COVID-19. However, concerning vaccine hesitancy movement questions safety despite overwhelming scientific evidence. Social media misinformation, pharmaceutical distrust, ideological positions create public health challenges. Disease outbreaks resulted in low vaccination communities. 79. Emergency care 60s. Rudimentary pre-hospital treatment ambulances, often provided by funeral homes, transported patients without medical interventions. Emergency rooms functioned as entry points rather than sophisticated trauma centers. No 911 system existed until late decade. Cardiac arrest survival low. Emergency care costs modest. 20s. Sophisticated pre-hospital care through trained paramedics with advanced life support. Rapid 911 coordinated transport. Specialized trauma centers dramatically improve survival from traumatic injuries, cardiac arrest, stroke. However, emergency departments face overcrowding. Costs exorbitant. Air ambulance bills reach tens of thousands. 80. Dental care 60s. Emphasize treating existing problems, cavities, extractions, dentures, rather than prevention. Regular visits less common. Many adults experience tooth loss requiring dentures by middle age. Dental drills slower, louder. Orthodontics less common. Cosmetic dentistry minimal. Dental insurance rare, costs modest. 20s. Emphasizes prevention through regular cleanings, fluoride treatments, sealants. Extensive cosmetic dentistry, whitening, veneers, bonding, orthodontics create expectations for perfect smiles. However, costs create access barriers. Orthodontics costs $5,000 to $8,000. Millions lack dental insurance, forgoing care until emergencies. 81. Banking. 1960s. Banking required visiting physical branches during limited hours, waiting in teller lines for deposits, withdrawals, and account inquiries. Personal relationships with bankers mattered for loans. Passbooks recorded transactions manually. No ATMs existed until late decade, making cash access dependent on branch hours and creating weekend cash shortages. 2020s. Online and mobile banking enables 24/7 account access, bill payments, transfers, and mobile check deposits from smartphones. ATMs provide cash globally. Branch visits are rare. However, digital divide excludes some populations, and automated systems lack personal service for complex issues, requiring human assistance and relationship-based banking decisions. 82. Credit cards. 1960s. Credit cards were relatively new, limited primarily to wealthy individuals and business travelers. Diners Club and American Express served niche markets. Most purchases used cash or checks. Store charge accounts existed but weren't universal credit instruments. Credit availability was restricted, and debt was culturally discouraged as financial irresponsibility. 2020s. Credit cards are ubiquitous payment methods, with Americans averaging 4 cards each. Rewards programs offer cash back, travel points, and perks incentivizing use. However, consumer debt exceeds $1 trillion, with many carrying balances at high interest rates. Credit scores determine financial opportunities, Marketing encourages spending beyond means. Normalizing debt. 83. Housing costs. 1960s. Median home prices were approximately $20,000, roughly 2 to 3 times median household income, making home ownership accessible to working-class families with modest down payments. Mortgages typically required 20% down. 30-year fixed-rate mortgages around 6% were standard. Housing consumed approximately 25% of household income, considered affordable. 2020s. Median home prices exceed $400,000, 5 to 7 times median income, creating affordability crisis, particularly for younger buyers. Down payments often require family assistance. Housing costs consume 30+% of income for many. Student debt delays home ownership. Investors purchasing homes for rentals reduce supply. Geographic disparities create housing deserts and opportunity costs. 84. Wages and income. 1960s. Median household income was approximately $6,000 annually, roughly $60,000 inflation adjusted. Minimum wage was $1.25, approximately $11 adjusted. Single incomes supported families. Income inequality was lower. CEO to worker pay ratios around 20 to 1. Union membership was high, supporting wage growth. College degrees weren't required for middle-class stability. 2020s. Median household income is approximately $75,000, but purchasing power has stagnated relative to costs. Federal minimum wage remains $7.25, inadequate for basic needs. Dual incomes are necessary. Income inequality has exploded. CEO pay ratios exceed 300 to 1. Union membership declined. College degrees are often required but don't guarantee middle-class security. 85. Retirement savings. 1960s. Defined benefit pensions promised specific monthly payments for life based on salary and service years. Companies bore investment risk and funded retirement security. Social Security supplemented pensions, together providing comfortable retirements. Retirement age, 65, aligned with shorter life expectancies. Personal savings were modest supplements, not primary retirement funding. 2020s. 401 defined contribution plans shift investment risk to individuals, who must save, invest wisely, and manage drawdowns. Many lack adequate retirement savings. 50% of families have nothing saved. Social Security faces solvency concerns. Retirement age expectations are increasing. People work longer, voluntarily or necessarily. Retirement insecurity is widespread, contrasting sharply with earlier security. 86. Investing. 1960s. Investing required stockbrokers executing trades for substantial commissions. Information was limited to newspapers and annual reports. Individual stock picking dominated. Mutual funds existed but were less common. Investing was wealthy persons' activity. Trading was slow orders placed by phone, executed on exchange floors. Market information was delayed, not real-time. 2020s. Online brokerages like Robinhood, Fidelity, and Charles Schwab offer commission-free trading via smartphone apps. Real-time quotes and news democratize information. Index funds and ETFs provide diversified low-cost investing. Robo-advisors automate portfolio management. However, easy access enables gambling behavior. Meme stocks and cryptocurrency speculation blur investing and betting. Market volatility and algorithmic trading create risks. 87. Shopping payment. 1960s. Cash was king. Most transactions used paper money and coins. Personal checks paid bills and larger purchases. Credit cards were rare. Layaway plans held merchandise until fully paid. No electronic payments existed. Change counted manually. Store credit meant account books tracking purchases. Cash management required planning since ATMs didn't exist. 2020s. Credit and debit cards dominate transactions. Contactless payments through cards or smartphones enable tap to pay. Venmo, Zelle, and PayPal transfer money instantly between individuals. Cash use is declining. Some businesses are cashless. Buy now, pay later services split purchases into installments. Cryptocurrency remains niche. Digital payments offer convenience but create privacy concerns and exclude unbanked populations. 88. Consumer debt. 1960s. Consumer debt was limited and culturally discouraged. Credit availability was restricted to creditworthy borrowers. Most debt was mortgages, Consumer credit was modest. Bankruptcy carried severe stigma. Saving before purchasing was standard practice. Debt-to-income ratios were low. Living within means was cultural expectation. Credit counseling barely existed because debt problems were rare. 2020s. Americans carry $14 trillion in household debt, mortgages, student loans, credit cards, auto loans, medical debt. Average credit card debt per household exceeds $6,000. Student loans burden 45 million borrowers. Medical debt causes bankruptcies. Cultural attitudes shifted toward accepting debt as necessary. Minimum payments trap borrowers in long-term debt cycles. Financial stress is widespread. 89. Tipping culture. 1960s. Tipping was standard in restaurants. 10 to 15% was typical. Tipping occurred primarily for table service, dining, taxi rides, hotel porters, and hairdressers. Cash tips were handed directly. No expectation for counter service, takeout, or many services now requesting tips. Service workers earned wages plus tips, though minimum wage applied. 2020s. Tipping expectations have expanded to counter service, food trucks, self-checkout screens, and numerous services previously untipped. Digital payment systems suggest 20 to 30% tips prominently. Tipping fatigue frustrates customers facing tip requests everywhere. Service workers depend on tips as wages stagnate. Debates rage about abolishing tipping for living wages versus maintaining tipping culture. 90. Cost of living, 1960s. Overall living costs consumed smaller income portions, housing 25%, food 18%. Single incomes supported families. Healthcare costs were modest. Education was affordable. Cars and clothing were relatively expensive but durable. Entertainment was cheap. Regional cost variations were less extreme. Working-class families achieved middle-class stability through modest incomes and manageable expenses. 2020s. Living costs have increased dramatically relative to wages. Housing 30+%. Healthcare, childcare, education consume larger shares. Regional disparities are extreme. Coastal cities are unaffordable, while rural areas struggle economically. Dual incomes barely maintain middle-class status. Many Americans live paycheck to paycheck despite working full-time. Inflation accelerates. Economic anxiety pervades, even employed households facing precarity. 91. Computing, 1960s. Computers were room-sized mainframes owned by governments, universities, and large corporations, costing millions and requiring specialized operators. Punch cards input data. Processing was batch-oriented, not interactive. Personal computers didn't exist. Computing power was extremely limited, less than modern calculators. Few people encountered computers directly. Computing meant centralized institutional resources, not personal tools. 2020s. Smartphones in pockets contain more computing power than all 1960s computers combined. Personal computers, laptops, and tablets are ubiquitous. Cloud computing provides unlimited processing and storage. Artificial intelligence performs complex tasks. Computing is personal, mobile, and essential for modern life. However, digital divide persists, and technology dependence creates vulnerabilities when systems fail. 92. Internet, 1960s. The Internet didn't exist publicly. ARPANET, precursor to Internet, was developed late decade by Department of Defense researchers, connecting 4 university computers. No email, websites, or online services. Information came from libraries, encyclopedias, and print media. Communication was telephone, mail, and face-to-face. The concept of global instant information sharing was science fiction. 2020s. Internet is foundational infrastructure for modern society. Communication, commerce, entertainment, education, government services depend on connectivity. 5 billion people online globally. Broadband and wireless enable constant connectivity. Internet transformed every aspect of life. How we work, socialize, shop, learn, and entertain ourselves. However, misinformation, privacy concerns, and digital addiction are significant challenges requiring ongoing responses. 93. Social media, 1960s. Social interaction occurred face-to-face, through telephone calls, and written correspondence. Community building happened through neighborhoods, churches, clubs, and civic organizations. News and information came from professional journalists, No platforms existed for broadcasting personal lives or opinions to broad audiences. Privacy was default. Sharing required deliberate effort through physical communication. 2020s. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and other platforms connect billions globally. Social media enables instant communication, news consumption, political organizing, and personal broadcasting. Influencers build careers through followers. However, social media fuels polarization, spreads misinformation, enables harassment, and harms mental health, particularly among young people. Platform moderation struggles with balancing free speech and preventing harm. 94. Photography. Sharing. 1960s. Photographs were carefully preserved in physical albums, organized chronologically with occasional captions. Sharing meant inviting people to view albums or mailing duplicate prints. Photos documented special occasions, primarily holidays, vacations, milestones. Limited exposures per film roll encouraged selective photography. Pictures remained private within families and friend circles. Photography was deliberate memory preservation. 2020s. Instagram and smartphones enable instant global photo sharing. Billions of photos uploaded daily document mundane daily activities alongside special occasions. Stories and posts disappear after 24 hours. Photo editing apps, perfect images. However, constant documentation may reduce presence in moments. Curated feeds create unrealistic comparisons. Privacy concerns arise from facial recognition and permanent digital records. 95. Information access. 1960s. Information came from limited trusted sources: newspapers, television news, encyclopedias, libraries, and experts. Research required physical library visits and time-consuming manual searches. Information scarcity meant gaps in knowledge were normal and accepted. Gatekeepers, journalists, librarians, teachers curated and verified information. Misinformation existed but spread slowly. Expertise was respected and deferred to. 2020s. Google and Internet provide instant access to vast information on any topic. Wikipedia offers comprehensive overviews. Academic databases contain scholarly research. However, information overload creates difficulty, distinguishing credible sources from misinformation. Expertise is questioned. Conspiracy theories spread rapidly. Filter bubbles reinforce existing beliefs. Critical evaluation skills are essential, but often lacking. Information abundance paradoxically reduces shared understanding. 96. Privacy. 1960s. Privacy was assumed. Default state government surveillance was limited. Businesses collected minimal personal data, and individuals controlled information about themselves. No databases tracked consumer behavior. Financial privacy was strong. Communication privacy was protected. Identity theft was rare. Anonymity was easy. Concerns about privacy centered on government overreach, particularly regarding political dissent during turbulent era. 2020s. Digital surveillance is pervasive. Corporations track online behavior. Smartphones know locations constantly. Cameras monitor public spaces, and data brokers sell personal information. Privacy has eroded dramatically. Accepting terms of service means surrendering data. Data breaches expose millions. Facial recognition raises concerns. Governments access data. However, privacy advocates push back through legislation like GDPR and awareness campaigns. 97. Dating. 1960s. Dating meant meeting through mutual friends, school, work, church, or community activities. Courtship followed predictable patterns: phone calls, planned dates, gradually increasing commitment. Parents often supervised or approved relationships. Dating was local, meeting people outside. Immediate geographic area was difficult. Social circles limited romantic options. Relationships formed through gradual in-person interaction, building familiarity. 2020s. Dating apps, Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, enable meeting potential partners through swipe-based matching algorithms. Online dating is normalized and primary meeting method. Geographic limitations disappear. However, paradox of choice creates decision paralysis. Superficial assessments based on photos dominate. Hookup culture coexists with relationship seeking. Traditional courtship has evolved, with texting replacing phone calls and ambiguity around relationship definitions. 98. Political engagement. 1960s. Political campaigns relied on television ads, radio, newspaper coverage, rallies, and door-to-door canvassing. Voters received information from limited sources: network news, newspapers, campaign materials. Political engagement happened through local party organizations and civic groups. Grassroots organizing required physical presence. Voter registration and turnout required manual processes. Political discourse occurred face-to-face or through letters. 2020s. Social media dominates political communication. Candidates tweet directly. Targeted ads reach specific demographics. Fundraising happens online, and misinformation spreads instantly. Political polarization increased partly through echo chambers and algorithmic amplification. Grassroots organizing uses digital tools. However, foreign interference, deepfakes, and micro-targeting manipulation threaten democracy. Traditional media struggles competing with social platforms for attention and advertising revenue. 99. Environmental awareness. 1960s. Environmental consciousness was emerging. Rachel Carson's Silent Spring warned about pesticides. Pollution was visible and worsening. And First Earth Day would occur in 1970. However, environmental regulations were minimal. Climate change wasn't widely known, and economic growth prioritized over environmental protection. Littering was common, recycling was rare, sustainability wasn't consumer consideration. 2020s. Climate change dominates environmental discourse. Overwhelming scientific consensus warns of catastrophic impacts from carbon emissions. Renewable energy, solar and wind, grows rapidly. Electric vehicles gain market share. Recycling and sustainability influence consumer choices. However, political polarization hampers climate action. Greenwashing misleads consumers. Global coordination remains inadequate. Youth climate activists demand urgent action while fossil fuel interests resist transition. 100. Space exploration. 1960s. Space exploration was government monopoly. NASA and Soviet space program competed in the space race, culminating in Apollo 11, moon landing in 1969, watched by millions globally. Space represented national prestige, Cold War competition, and human achievement. Astronauts were heroes. Space budgets were substantial. Public enthusiasm was high. Future visions included moon bases and Mars missions. 2020s. Commercial space companies. SpaceX, Blue Origin compete with governments, reducing costs through reusable rockets. Space tourism begins for billionaires. International Space Station represents global cooperation. Mars missions are planned. However, space exploration receives less public attention and reduced government funding relative to GDP. Debates exist about prioritizing Earth problems versus space investment. Space represents private enterprise opportunity more than national prestige.